The Click R3 podcast is brought to you by the awesome community over on Patreon. To learn more about supporting the show, head over to spawncastnetwork.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Click R3 number 7. Not to be confused with the $700 Click R3 episode. Kind of is though, actually. Now I'm thinking about it. It is. It's been a week for Sony. There is so much stuff that's happened, and let me first, of course, introduce the usual suspect here, the co-host, that being Mystic Ryan. Or just Ryan.
Hello, John. We got a lot to go over today, don't we?
This was. I thought going into this, Concord, maybe Astro, but like definitely Concord would have been the big topic, because that was like, whoa, what is happening? That feels like I said before we went live. That seemed like a year ago at this point. Everything that's happened now.
Yeah, you see the meme images of like, oh, Concord, where it's over, it's Jover. Then Astro Bot comes out. Oh, we are so back. PS5 Pro.
It's over again.
It's Jover again. Damn it.
Next week we'll be back again. Watch.
So I did want to kick it off. I did want to kick it off with Astro Bot. So let's at least start.
Okay, you want to talk about some good stuff, some happy stuff. Okay,
because it's what we were playing. You know, I mean, I wrapped it up. True. I know you wrapped it up. What we can say before we played it, obviously, is that the reviews dropped, and this game reviewed exceptionally well. So it's like still a 94 on Metacritic, and that's across 100 reviews. OpenCritic, it's a 95. I mean, incredibly well received. I think we've all, now had that weekend. So how are we feeling about the game?
Yeah, so it's highest rate. It's 94. Shadow of the Erdtree is 95. But I kind of look at that, as many people do, sure, as like it's separate because it's DLC. So I look at Astro Bot as like the highest rated game right now of the year. And I think deservingly so, because the one below that right now is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I like that too, but I do feel like I had more fun. Actually, it sounds weird to say that, but I feel like I had more fun with Astro Bot. And I mean, Astro Bot is just a video game. Like, it is the most video game, as I mentioned before, that I've played in a long time. But I did actually, how I know a game's good, this is how we know, is when I get the platinum trophy. That's how you know it's good.
Okay, but here's the thing though. It's an approachable platinum. I would damn sure hope you platinumed it, John. I mean, that's the minimum here.
Platinum, it is done. I actually posted the platinum screenshot that it takes yesterday, and I double checked the trophies to make sure I would get the platinum when I was back at like my camp with all the bots around and stuff. Because there are a few where it's like, take a picture with this bot or get these 2 bots to do this, and I realized, okay, well, when it's done, it'll pop the platinum and then it'll take my screenshot of that happening. So I wanted to get at least somewhere like that. So I managed to pull that off, and I did the platinum there. And usually when I get it, I feel like, while it is approachable, you have to go out of your way a little bit at least to do it. Like, you have to spend more time after seeing the credits.
So yeah, some of them are like miscellaneous, basically. So if you don't unlock them naturally, you kind of have to look up to be like, okay, I got to go off and do this little thing real quick, and it's a bronze. But yeah, I think it's incredible.
I figured you would. I'm playing this. I'm like, Ryan's got to be losing his mind at all this stuff happening on screen right now.
Yeah. So like I was telling viewers on LTPS, but like I'm going to film my whole playthrough, because I feel like it's that kind of game where I want to capture every single moment of like the stuff that pops up and all the VIP bots. And because that was such a cool thing, is like there's 150 something little VIP bots, and some of them can be really obscure. So I was like excited to kind of go through that and just like see how many I would know for certain, or maybe go, what's that one, right? But it's just,
there were a few where I was like, what is that? Am I missing something?
There was like 4 or 5. And some of them, 4 or 5 that I straight up, like, there was no shot I was going to figure out what they were. And then like maybe 4 or 5 more that like I probably would have easily known, but I'm just not, I don't play those like particular games.
Right.
Like they were like I'll admit this, like there was a Monster Hunter one. I didn't pick up on that. So
yeah, no, I get that.
Otherwise, I picked up on a lot of them. But, the VIP bot aside, I mean, just, moment-to-moment gameplay. It's just, this is a fun-ass video game. Like, just tried and true. And it's one that
all ages can play it. It doesn't, like, when I did my first bit of recording I'd put like 40 some odd minutes up the night it came out. I looked, and I was playing the game by minute 3 from starting the game.
Yeah, you're right on. You're right on.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's like it doesn't waste time. It doesn't have you spend 30, 40 minutes sometimes doing, the slow walk while they're feeding you the narrative or something like that. You're just playing the game in a few minutes. And it's very intuitive, and it tells you how to do stuff for the most part just through design of the level. Like, not overly explaining things to you. They progress you through with these power-ups so you understand what they do, like the dog that has you charge through stuff, for example. And you eventually get to the point where you're doing more advanced techniques, all kind of like stair stepping you up to the harder stuff. So I think just the way the level design is, how tight knit the whole game is when you're going through it, it just keeps you wanting to play because it doesn't feel like you're wasting time pretty much ever.
Yeah, I agreed. The thing I took away from it a lot is the sort of environmental range the game has, with just how completely different all those planets were in each different little subsection of the level. There are like 3 or 4 that might be like a particular theme. Like there was a bunch of spooky Halloween themed levels, right? But each one kind of felt even more distinct within itself. There's that sort of treehouse level, the one where it's like a night and day thing where the whole level shifts over and stuff.
Yep, that one was cool.
Yeah, it's just and I just love the sort of environmental range the game had, which the creative director at Team Asobi, Nicholas Touche, talked a little bit about this, how they were theorizing maybe we should, do an open world. And it's like, well, if we do that, then we have to contextualize all those moments where you have to go from, say, one area to the other. And they just kind of threw that out the door and said, no, let's just worry about a 12 something hour, very tight experience where we can sort of just have fun, like fine crafting each particular environment and these sort of gameplay hooks that might lean into the certain levels where it's like you would use the dog for the portion of it, or the soaking mechanic or something. Every level was very fun in that way.
Feels like the early PS3 days, almost like a studio, like feels like one of Sony's bigger studios would have this idea then, but they just man, they got those old souls there, and they're still doing it. They're still making it happen. I mean, they said one of the ways they were able to get the game out is because they had been together, like many of them been together developing games for like 10 plus years or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a lot of that
continuity.
Yeah, it's a lot of that institutional knowledge and insight and camaraderie that comes with a team. Oftentimes it's like there's like less friction, or at least less worry about, say, upsetting a coworker or something when disagreements pop up. It seems like it all came together like beautifully, especially for what is kind of a tight knit team of like 65 people, a 3-year dev cycle, and it shows. And the game's just technically super polished. There's nothing, plays great. There's just no concerns, no worries.
I didn't have any bugs. Nothing happened. Like it just was fine the whole way through.
Yeah. It's just like pound for pound, every part of it from top to bottom is like just a refreshing thing, especially from PlayStation Studios, obviously, given that the company's so hyper focused on AAA, massive narrative inspired games and that sort of third person behind the shoulder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just, there is a sort of template that a lot of the first party studios have not quite like molded into, but a lot of them are like that. Like that's where the fatigue is coming from. So it's just it's refreshing.
Is this your game of the year right now, Ryan?
I mean, probably, yeah. But I haven't gotten to play a whole lot this year, just given, and I was telling you before, like I'm playing a lot of the older stuff right now for like a different series. So like I still haven't gotten a Rebirth, still haven't gotten to, a handful of other things that came up. I'm still waiting to, sit down and spend 2+ weeks to play Elden Ring, which would now include the Erdtree DLC. So it's like, I'm just behind on a shitload of things. So by nature of my lack of playing things, it's probably my game of the year. But
I'd probably go to Rebirth next, since that is like you played Remake, so you want to get the Rebirth and check that out. But that's the next best game this year that most people will agree on, I think. And I think Astro Bot's just again, Rebirth is good. I have over 100 hours in that, and I have like half the trophies. It is one of those games where people tell me they platinum it, and then they tell me their playtime of like more than 200 hours, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, that's because Square fucks up trophy lists.
Yeah, but when you play Rebirth,
they always ask for another playthrough, and they just ask for
kind of do.
It's too much of a time sink.
Rebirth is that's one where you kind of feel like they felt the need to try to get to an arbitrary number for its game length. And when you start to feel that and notice it, then I think they overdid it at that point. If they're trying, you're supposed to try to hide that a bit. And in a way, Astro kind of did it just by saying, okay, instead of this having to be a 20-hour game, we're just going to make it a 12-hour game and cut out anything that would have got us to 20 hours. And I that's something I do appreciate in general, because I think it just makes the game more fun. It just feels like things are always happening, and it feels like you're accomplishing stuff just getting through the levels. And I would say the Astro's difficulty, I feel like is just right, because it doesn't have difficulty settings. It has built-in difficulty choices, basically. So they have those the symbols, right? You have the symbols
and the face button levels.
Yes, and those are pretty challenging. People will look at those and go, man, it took me 15 times to do it, because it takes like you'll fail in like 15 seconds most times. But when you get through it, it's like 50 seconds to run through it and you're done, right? And it's fun because when you complete it, it's like a really nice run all the way through, right? But you don't have to do them. You don't. It usually just gets you one bot and that's it. And it's just more of a fun thing. Those have like kind of the special world. I feel like you can skip a lot of that. I have to see how many bots came out of there.
The lost levels.
Yeah, I have to see how many bots come out of there. Those weren't particularly difficult, but they were slightly harder than the regular levels, right?
They're like a half step almost, because there's 2 puzzle pieces in those, and then only like four bots total. Whereas those mainline levels have like 7 bots and then 3 puzzle pieces, and some of them might have that lost world that you have to find.
Yep.
And then the face button levels are like just a singular little gauntlet with 1 bot.
And I will say, if I had to trust anyone when it comes to the PlayStation hardware, it would be Astro, obviously. He basically lives in the PlayStation. And
he does, yes.
He refers to, or this robot refers to refers to it as Cross. I read that title and I started laughing in my room out loud, like audibly. I was like, John, I got it.
Yeah, but I don't care, John. I don't care.
It's Cross.
Okay, great. Does that help you sleep at night?
A little bit.
I have no skin in the game. You can it's the GIF or GIF argument. You can either sound right and be wrong, or be right and sound wrong. That's it.
Astro Bot, this robot, just confirmed that yes, it is. For everyone out there listening, it is Cross. You're allowed to say that now. That's the way it is. If anyone tells you it's X, you need to correct them and tell them it's Cross.
I want you to understand the stance you're taking here, John. You're basically saying that GIF is pronounced GIF. That's what you're doing. I'm just going with Astrobot. Okay, Astrobot is the one saying it. You're the asshole.
Astrobot's the one saying it. He's the one saying it. Maybe everybody else is, because they're getting it wrong. Maybe the original the PlayStation the original PlayStation Vision was Cross.
I love how
everyone took it, hijacked it, and said X, and now here we are.
Your stupid segue was, Astro lives in the PlayStation, so clearly,
hey, Astro knows
it Cross.
You know, I just thought that was funny. I was like, all right, finally, someone's willing to actually do this. So now it's up to Naughty Dog to say Cross.
There's a lot of games that do it. There's like a few examples where, like, because I think it's. I don't know if it's like part of the documentation or if Sony encourages it, but a lot of games do say press the cross button. But
I'll say this is the mascot. This is the PlayStation mascot now. PlayStation colors, the whole thing. If they showed up and in the newest 3D platformer from Nintendo, the big first party title, and they showed up and they said, Mario, can you help us? I'd be like, whoa, my whole life is a lie. It's Mario.
Mario.
Like, Bob was right.
He does say Mario, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's wrong every time. It's Mario.
I say pick your poison. Most people say X. So
most people should learn.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Astro, I'm backing up Astrobot. Who's talking down Astrobot? Astro's sitting there doing whatever they want at a 94. They can say whatever they want.
I've never seen a man try so hard to make a debate that's not a debate. That's all I'll say.
You should see Twitter.
All right. Well, for Astro, at least, you know what we can say, though, John. There are going to be some...
I got the controller, too.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Controller.
It does look nice. It does look nice.
It's a nice controller. Also,
Yeah.
this thing sold out, it seemed, and like people were trying to scalp it again or something. I don't know. It's a cool controller. The little eyes there are actually very, very nice bright blue. Look at that. Nice bright blue.
All right, well, stop showing it to me. I made the
This is all glossy this is all super glossy, by the way.
I made the conscious decision to not spend another $80 that I know I shouldn't be spending.
I don't know if I like the glossiness on the front. It feels kind of weird. Like this is all glossy all the way up around the top. I don't know if I like that.
Did you play with it?
I've used it. It's noticeable it's glossy though. It's kind of strange. It's weird.
So did you?
It's like right where your palm, like the blue is right where your palms are.
All right. Did you play with it?
The controller, yes.
you know the actual the regular DualSense all white. You know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like the glossy plastic is things throwing me off. I mean, it's also still black around here where they have the plastic on the regular one. Did I just turn my PS5 on? No, okay. Sorry. It's back here. My PS5 did that thing where it turned on by itself randomly and sat there for like 5 minutes and then went into rest mode.
Why would it do that?
I don't know. Randomly, sometimes it'll do that. And I'm like, oh, it must be updating or doing something it must be doing something. And then it just goes into rest mode. It's right. Like it's rest mode right there.
It doesn't need to do that. Not this console. PS3s used to do that.
Yeah, I remember that. It just randomly, I hear my beep and my PS3 is like, what is going on? It'll do it sometimes. Every now and then, maybe every other week or something, it'll turn on. And I'll be like, why did it just turn on? And they'll sit there for a little bit and then go to rest mode.
I don't think that should be doing that.
Well, it is.
Well, there's a glitch in the matrix here. Everyone's assigned Astro Bot. It looks like yours is going deviant over there. It's breaking through the fourth wall. Now, John, there is going to be some Astro Bot DLC though. New challenge rooms and speedrun levels. So with those face button levels, I mean, yeah, I would love to see absolutely give me more of those, like those straight gauntlets. And if anything, I would say lean into more difficulty. Those were super fun.
Do we get an R3 level?
We should, but I would be a little bit alarmed to see an actual R3 joystick floating in space with eyes on them. This is something I noticed. I don't know why, but I was so mindful of this throughout my playthrough. I'm like, I love how everything is a robot. Everything has digital eyes, like digital little worms and squirrels. Everything's a robot. But then I got to the face button levels, and John, I have a problem here. Why are the face buttons are clearly flesh? Because they have human eyes. They don't have robot eyes. Did you see this?
That is interesting.
It looks like they have googly eyes on them. They're clearly flesh. Like if Astro took a knife to them, they would bleed. And I feel a little uncomfortable about this. So I'm not sure if I want an R3 floating around with actual eyeballs on it.
With eyeballs, okay.
Yeah. Give it digital eyes. Give it the robot eyes.
That is interesting. I didn't even think of that until you just mentioned it now. It's very different, yeah, from everything else around them.
Fire it up. Those are fleshy buttons floating around in space. That's concerning. Deeply concerning, I should say.
So you're saying that the symbols, okay, triangle, circle, square, cross, they're human. They're all human then.
They appear human.
Interesting.
Why are they not robots? Everything in that world's robots except the face buttons. I don't know. Just cause for concern. I'm just a guy. I'm just saying. Looked a little weird to me.
I did like I thought the end was very good too. I'm not gonna spoil it or anything. And I thought the credits were fun. So it was fun all the way to the end is what I'll say. Like they were no stone unturned.
Do we want to quickly mention the initial preliminary sales data we're getting out of the UK for Astro Bot?
We can. I heard it outsold Concord. Yeah. It's a good start.
Well, if we want to try and frame the story that way to make it sound good, then sure, we'll do it that way. It was box sales only. This is being tracked by the GfK, which tracks video game sales data in the UK and Europe. This is UK sales data though. Boxed copies only, what'd they say, a third for like Rift Apart, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Which like that is exactly the benchmark we talked about like months ago with this game, where you'd ask me like, where do you think this game's going to do? It's like, well, the only other AAA sort of big platformer Sony has is Ratchet. Ratchet's a very established IP. So yeah, I said at the time, I I would love for this game to do incredibly well. I'm not sure how well it will do to something like Ratchet, which is established. So while it's only boxed copies at retail, just the UK, at least we have an early indicator the game did fine, but maybe not something like a Ratchet.
Yeah, what happens here is Ratchet came out years ago now, 3-4 years.
2021.
3 years ago. And I did see this. Matt Piscatella pointed this out too, comparing physical sales now of a game versus physical sales of a game even 3 years ago. And they're kind of inferring the idea that physical sales have dropped off quite a bit. And I don't think anyone's disputing that at this point. We see it in the numbers from these companies. I think Astro Bot is going to be, I think this is a game that probably is skewing quite heavy digital. I wouldn't be shocked if that were the case. And I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to jump the gun on this one with just UK sales. Apparently it's sold out in Japan. That's the word that was going around. So we will get the Japanese sales charts 2 days from now, tomorrow. We'll get the Japanese sales charts. I just want to see what that looks like first before I start thinking about maybe some of the sales. Because I will tell you this, UK, Astro Bot, I believe, topped the sales charts. I believe, right, is number one. That might have been 5,000 copies. That might have been it. That might have been all it took. I'm not even kidding. It might have just been that much. So that's one of the reasons I'm like, I
wouldn't go that far. I mean, we saw this from the Insomniac breach, which is a lot of the PlayStation Studio games. That ratio is much higher. Like a lot of third-party stuff leans heavy digital, but PS Studio games, people like getting their discs. So I wouldn't put it past just yet. Although obviously I would refrain from making any sort of conclusions right now based off that one very, very zoned in data set. But it does, I think, possibly steer us in the direction that the game is going to do well, but maybe not as well as Ratchet.
I kind of want to get through the holiday coming up for Astro. I kind of want to see how Astro does there, because I almost feel like it's a good pickup if you get a PS5 for the first time. Like if you're out trying to figure out a game to get with the PS5, and especially if you're, so let's say you hear that the nephew or niece or whoever's getting a PS5 for Christmas, and you're like, I gotta go pick out a game for them. I don't know what's too violent, what's not. Oh wait, Astro Bot. Okay, that's like their Mario. Boom, I'll pick it. I do feel like it's gonna have a nice little surge at holiday time too.
I hope so. I would hope this game has like good legs to it. And not like we have to zone in on week one sales or anything. I would hope it sticks around for a little bit and stays relevant.
They delivered though, right? 94. Yeah. Asobi delivered. To me now, I hear people all the time say they want these kind of games, like all the time online, but there's Japan studio shut down, or like, why do they keep making the same over the shoulder third person games, or like they're trying to go for these narrative games where I don't get to play much at times, right? It's like a movie. Here's a game that's the opposite of all of that. And I feel like now is they put up their end of the bargain. The game's good. It's an easy thing to recommend. It's not even $70. It's $60. This seems like the moment where the gamer should show up, as what I'll say. I think this game is a high quality pickup.
I would hope. I mean, that's the, I mean, like you said, with Japan Studio. I mean, we see this all the time with the sort of core PlayStation audience. I love all these Sony IP, all the stuff that they published, across PS1 through 3 and Vita, but a lot of this stuff didn't sell. It's just the reality of it. So I would hope this is the game where people do show up and pick the game up and have some fun with it. I mean, it is. I mean,
budget's lower on this, right?
That's exactly it. It's a very modest budget for this kind of game. That's why, like, I wouldn't even harp too much on like, oh, how well is it going to do compared to like Rift Apart, for example. Like, this is the first time Astro's really had a shot at being sold, because again, like with PSVR, it's tied to VR. This is the first time most people can like vote with their wallet for Astro as an IP. Mm-hmm. So I think the first game should do well, and that can hopefully be a bridge to another Astro Bot game, and the name can sort of build over time. Rome wasn't built in a day.
I feel like if we eventually get data back that suggests it's sold like over time, even like a year or two from now, oh yeah, Astro Bot sold like 3 million some odd copies, I'd say, oh wow, good. That'd be great. They're pretty happy with that then. Yeah.
3 million would be great for this game, I think.
On the budget, yeah, for revenue coming in, that's an easy profit, and they probably immediately start greenlighting other stuff from them like that.
I would hope. And the thing is, I would also hope it stays the way it is, which is awesome. Now give him another 3 years and do another, like, don't grow. We don't have to balloon up or anything. Like, just make sure we keep this game special in the way that it was made before. Like, I think Team Asobo also outlined this. They don't necessarily want to, balloon out and start doing crazy stuff. Right. So yeah, greenlight another Astro.
What would you do next with Astrobot? I kind of have a little bit of, I have an idea, I think.
You know what? Well, here's the thing too, right? Like, because there is still a novelty to Astrobot right now, which is like how it's like a celebration of PlayStation history more so than Playroom. But Astrobot inherently is still like, you take out the VIP bots, it's like its own thing. It's and towards the end of the game, well, really, even at the beginning of the game, I'll say this, not because obviously I don't want to spoil anything. The actual like Astrobot character, who's a very nondescript like thing, it seems a little bit more animated. They gave him a little bit more, things to say, not say, but like sort of ambient noises he can make and the dancing, and they're kind of giving the character personality. So I would hope the next game is just more like it stands on its own and it can just be like maybe a separate universe he goes off to or something. And at a certain point, he's going to have to exit the whole, like, it has to be a PlayStation themed thing.
Right.
Maybe they could always have a shtick with that. I don't know. But I think at a certain point, we have to like let Astro truly be its own thing, untethered from, being a PlayStation, either graveyard or celebration, depending on how you look at it.
So I kind of feel like the next step for this, if they were going to stay intertwined with PlayStation, the history, is to go a bit like the next level when it comes to some of those specialized stages. Do you know what I mean? Where you take on the form of a PlayStation character in their own world kind of thing. And it was like one level, right? It's brief technically compared to the rest of the game. I almost feel like you turn Astrobot into like the Kingdom Hearts of PlayStation, where you go to different worlds with these games as Astrobot, and it's just more built out. Like, instead of, for example, you go there as one, you have an entire like universe that you go to, but it's like the world of like God of War, for example, and you spend more time there. Like, there's more stuff to find there. There's levels maybe for each thing, even all the way around, and you have that for multiple PlayStation IPs, because I also think eventually Sony could look at this as a way to introduce people to some of their intellectual properties and some of their characters, especially the younger audience. Like, there are probably some that play this and they're like, oh, God of War, what's that? But they're like 8. Well, they're not gonna play God of War now, but they might play God of War in 6 or 7 years or something.
So in actuality, you're actually proposing the sort of exact opposite of what I was getting at.
If they're going to do it again, if they're going to take another shot at it, because I think there is still some potential there for them to have a PlayStation 6 launch title being an Astrobot game, but it works to bring in all these Sony games more meaningfully, these different worlds. And it's got, like I said, it's kind of like Kingdom Hearts, where Kingdom Hearts, they have all these different properties around them from Disney, and you have this character that goes between the different worlds and acts out things in that world. So, yeah, I mean, that's my strategy.
Well, if we got that, I mean, I would not hate that either. I would love that. I think
there's one level, and I can't say it because I feel like it was such a fun surprise for me. But I was when it happened, and I'm looking at, I was like, how they really made a level for this? What is going on right now? Like, it was a 4th or 5th one. It was later on. And I'm trying to think of a way to say it without like giving it away.
Just put it in the chat.
Oh, I could do that.
You could just type it. I'll vamp for a second here. Yeah. So just based off what you were saying, I already knew. I too had a very, let's say, animated reaction to it.
I figured you lost your mind. You were like, "There's no way they're doing this right now."
Well, at that, that was like what, the third one or something. So the cat was kind of out of the bag with like what they were doing once you got to like those sequences. But yeah, I was pumped. I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." So yeah, I guess to capitalize on what you're suggesting, yeah, that's a great idea too. Honestly, I think either direction I would be happy with. Just give me more of this goddamn robot. That's where I stand on this.
High quality stuff. If at the very least, Sony does want those high rated games to put alongside the PlayStation Studios brand, and they have it here. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping the Astro's Playroom has a good effect on current owners of the PS5, and they look at this after experiencing there. If you've never played Astro's Playroom, well,
I can't help you if you haven't played.
I was saying, I was trying to think of something to say. I don't know what to tell you.
It's a free game. I mean, what the fuck?
It's right. It's good too. It's very good.
Any chance I get, I tell in like tutorial videos or like my tips and tricks video, I always say like, don't sleep on that game. If you're a new owner, play it. It came with your console. Play that game.
I think some people are legitimately surprised it's a game. I think they think it's just like an introduction program or something.
Probably. I mean, they shipped it on PS4 and it's a damn camera app that nobody can launch. So. All right, John, you want to move on to some smaller news stories before we get this thing going again? Sure. We've got some PS Plus news, PS Plus Essential, September lineup. It's already live on PSN. Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, MLB The Show 24, Little Nightmares 2. Those are all PS4, PS5. The Harry Potter game, that was a day one launch into PS Plus, so I know people were pretty psyched for that if you're into the Harry Potter universe, because I guess, Legacy didn't have any of that...
No, they made up some excuse for it. They were like, "Oh, we couldn't do it this year because somebody got in trouble or something." Like, okay, you want to sell that again as a different game? We got it. Don't worry. Yeah.
Little Nightmares 2, really fun game. I will say, I don't know how you stand on this. I hate when they add sports games into Essential because it's like a weird thing where it's like they're annual sports games, right? So you either you buy them every year or you don't, and therefore this is. What does this mean to you?
If you know you're going to get it in the service day one, then I think it makes a lot of sense for sports games to be there. Like Game Pass technically gets MLB The Show launch day every year, or at least past couple of years they have, right? That makes perfect sense to me. I'm like, great. You don't have to buy the game that's going to depreciate 90% in 3 months or something. That makes sense. But when it's this case where we are on the latter side of the baseball season, if you wanted this game, you probably already bought it. Like, let's be real. I
think it's a cop out. I hate when they do this. It's just, don't put sports. If you're going to do a sports game in Essential, put a fourth game in there. That's where I stand.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right. PS Plus Extra and Premium games that are going to be leaving on September 17th. So you'll really only have like a week left to do this. And I don't know if you saw, but like they did this thing where initially they'll announce they don't even announce this. They stick it in the collections tab underneath on PS Plus. You kind of have to go out of your way to find these games that are leaving, but they usually update the list right away when the previous lineup goes live. So they put 12 games on there, and then 2 weeks go by, and then 4 more games go on there. But they're still going to expire at the same time. So then you only have 2 weeks left to play the new one.
What big RPG they put on there, Ryan?
13. It's not big, but 13 Sentinels. It's like a 40-hour game. Like you put it up last minute. What are they doing with this? So the full list, mind you, is 13 Sentinels, Alien Isolation, Cloudpunk, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, Horizon Forbidden West, which that's kind of a big one there too.
Interesting.
Marvel's Midnight Suns, Nier Replicant, Planet Coaster, Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2, Spiritfarer, a lot of Star Ocean games, Star Ocean Integrity and Faithfulness, Star Ocean The Divine Force, Star Ocean First Departure R, Star Ocean The Last Hope, Star Ocean Till the End of Time, and Unpacking.
I feel like those Star Ocean games were in there for just a few months. Am I wrong? When did those go in? I feel like it hasn't been that long.
It might have been 6 months. I mean, typically it's 6 months to a year. A lot of the big stuff is six months. Those last 3 Star Ocean games are on premium, by the way. So the split is mostly extra for these games.
Okay. That Horizon one is interesting. They pulled a first party game out. I think that experiment's done. I don't think they were very happy with that one.
Yeah, that one, I mean, it might seem weird, but like it is an outlier in that like it went into Plus after a year, and it's a pretty big marquee title, so that was, and we saw from the Insomniac breach, that was like an experiment for them basically, which no shit, like the sales fell off a goddamn cliff once it went into extras. So now they're taking it out. So I'm not sure if that's really indicative of like, oh, they're going to take out Miles Morales next and Demon Souls and Returnal. But I think it's still very likely be the case where maybe they'll do that at some point. Because this is like the vicious cycle with subscription, right? Is that when you add it in there, like, okay, you might see an initial bump, but then it levels off at a certain point. So it's like, how do you encourage interest to subscribe again? Well, you take shit out and then you put it right back in at certain points to spike those subscriptions. So I almost feel like we will have this sort of like carrot on a stick with PS Studio games coming in and out when they don't have to leave technically.
I think that's interesting that they cycle them in and out like that. And I remember that. I mean, I assume at this point we believe it may have been crossed wires with that Lego Horizon game. Remember that Horizon Zero Dawn remake or remaster that was kind of floated around for a while?
Yes.
Just seeing Horizon be up there being pulled out with the of the service did make me think of that briefly. So
maybe there's something to it.
We should be hearing the games going in here actually the next couple of days anyway. So we'll see what they have to replace it with too.
we will be missing that. Thankfully, this is a Click R3 where we're going to be covering most of the big shit. So did you see this? Final Fantasy 16 was on PS.
This is weird. Extra. I saw this. Yeah, I saw this.
Very weird. It was up for, I want to say 8 to 10 hours. It was on Extra. Not announced, obviously, just showed up on PSN as you can claim it. So I did at the time. And it launched without my disc, and then it's been fixed. Yeah, I don't know if that's just is that just a fluke, or does that mean we're going to have that game?
I feel like that's going in. The fact that they had that all set up on the back end, that'd be weird to accidentally. When was the last time that accidentally happened to anyone? I've never seen this mistakenly happen, and the game wasn't gonna get a plus license at some point. It feels like they're coming up on Tokyo Game Show soon. We're expecting a state of play. This seems like something that'd just be easy for them at this time to throw into PlayStation Plus Premium or Extra, which again, we should be seeing the announcement for that here any day now. Maybe just fired a little early is all.
Maybe. It seems like there's a lot of movement on 16 right now because there's rumors of it going to, PC's confirmed, but also Xbox as well at some point. So maybe Square's lining up a bunch of checks to finally get that more people playing that game. Mm-hmm. All right, next up we have Antstream launching on PS4 and PS5. That came out the same day as Astro Bot, so probably got lost in the news there. But Antstream's that retro game streaming service. It's been on Xbox and iOS for a few years now, I think. They offer 1,300 games across the Amiga and arcade and C64 and DOS and Game Boy. And it's one of those kind of misleading things in that they'll say 1,300 games. The vast majority are arcade and
right
ZX Spectrum and Atari and stuff like that, which is not inherently bad, but I think sometimes people look at this and go, oh, Game Boy, Genesis, PS1, but there's only a handful of those on there. But there is a crap load of retro games that you can stream. You don't play them locally, you have to stream them. And you can subscribe for $4 a month, or it's I think $40 for a year subscription. So I haven't had the chance to try it.
Sean really seemed to like it. He's used it a couple times now.
Have you tried it?
I haven't, no. But Sean was playing Mortal Kombat, actual fighting games on there, and he seemed fine with it.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about trying it sometime soon just to see what's going on there, but that's on PlayStation 4 and 5.
The price isn't bad. You said $4 for a month for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely low. And not to say quality over quantity, obviously, but it's cool to have access to that much stuff and just pop in for a minute and then back out if you don't care about it or something. So there's that. Moving on to the PlayStation Accessories app for Windows. So this used to be the firmware updater for the DualSense app. It was literally just a Windows app that you would use to update your DualSense. Now it's an actual full-blown DualSense Edge app, basically. They call it the Accessories app, but it's basically for the DualSense Edge. So if you have an Edge on PS5, you know that you can you have a new settings part of the on PlayStation 5. There's now a whole suite of settings you can access to adjust the sensitivity of the triggers and dead zones and set up your custom profiles. So now you can do all that on PC, which I think is kind of what they should have done when they launched that thing. Kind of expected there. Moving on to PlayStation's 30th anniversary, they've outlined some initial plans. This isn't everything, but we've got some initial celebration plans. So there's My First GT, which is going to be a new trial version of Gran Turismo 7. So marketing. If you didn't buy GT7 yet, let's celebrate PlayStation by getting you to buy that game with a trial version. There's digital game soundtracks that they're getting released, that they are releasing each month from October to January. They're going to release a new soundtrack from different PlayStation franchises. That includes God of War 1, 2, and Ghost of Sparta, Twisted Metal, Starhawk, Warhawk, Unit 13. They're going to put up like Spotify playlists. And I mean, that's cool. I always like when
Unit 13 is an interesting one. I was like, oh, is that like,
yeah, it's the Vita
people
game.
like, oh, that iconic Unit 13 music.
I know, it's kind of weird. These are the franchises you pick for the, like, I saw the list and I'm like, okay, so that's just like an example, right? Like there's going to be more than this, but either way, I like when publishers put their soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's just, I just thought it was funny that, like, you're not going to believe this. Unit 13's on Spotify now. It's like, I'm sure somebody out there is like, finally.
Well, so I thought this was even weirder, though. Honestly, I think this was weird. The Shapes of Play collection. So these are physical products that you can like buy and play with, because there's the Shapes of Play Battle, which is a board game with PlayStation buttons. There's the Shapes of Play Create, and these are magnetic blocks. Pretty hyped there. There's these Shapes of Play Recharge, which are stress balls. Thank God. And these are going to come out in December. The pre-orders start now, John. So you can lock these in now. the Battle $79.99. Excuse me. The Create is $79.99. Battle is $44.99. Recharge is $34.99. They got to have a state of play, man. Why?
They got to do something. Come on.
So I called these. I'm like, this is so avant-garde, like cool, but also like, is this how we're celebrating the 30th anniversary? It's cool. Like, I don't know. They're cool little trinkets, but they're just so weird and overpriced.
You know what's kind of a shame is that they already went down the road for that PlayStation Classic. I know they kind of lined that up with like anniversary timing sort of too, but like the 30th feels big for PlayStation because it's like when they first started. It's actually been 3 decades, which is crazy to think about like overall. But this feels like it should be a big celebration for them, a 3rd decade, and especially where they started to where they are now, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, here's some stress balls. And it's like, what in the world?
Well, John, hold on, John. We're not even done. There's also a free multiplayer weekend coming up on the 21st and the 22nd. They're going to host some tournaments in NBA 2K24, 25, Madden 24, MLB 24, UFC 5, Tekken 8, and Guilty Gear Strive. And if you participate in a tournament, you're going to get a 30th anniversary avatar. And they also said this is not everything. So I wholeheartedly assume we will get more than this.
Okay, so I would hope so, first off. But I think what I would like to see, because I don't think they're all of a sudden going to make some new piece of hardware or something. They're not going to do another PlayStation Classic or something. That's fine. I would like to see them dive into some of the original PlayStation color schemes for their current system, like with the PS5, right? Like a DualSense would be awesome. I know it's funny because we talk about how many controllers these companies produce constantly, but this is that moment where you produce the controller, right? It's anniversary, 30th anniversary. Let's do all kinds of cool 30th anniversary theme stuff to commemorate the occasion. That you got your plates you can sell, the plastic there, and
the 20th anniversary PS4, basically just do that all over again.
Yes.
I mean, do you remember when Jim Ryan retired? His gift was a PS1 themed PlayStation 5. You remember that?
Yeah, we just need the plates of the controller.
Exactly. They can sell that.
Yeah.
And the DualSense as well. Yeah,
I think that'd be fun.
I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I feel like the best outcome for celebrating the 30th anniversary is like maybe they'll sell those. I would hope so because they look pretty cool. I'm not sure what else they do. I mean, maybe I'm wrong and they'll do some pretty cool stuff to celebrate. But initially, these plans are kind of like, I don't know.
That it's a little. I don't know. I mean, they want to start off, I guess, without showing you the best stuff they're going to do, I hope. And they still have, because technically December is when the 30th birthday is for the PlayStation from Japan, when it released in Japan. So they still have several months, but you want to unveil the stuff to then get it shipped out and get everyone ready for it. So I feel like we hear about whatever big thing they have by October, right? Like they would want to have that announced then. So we'll see. Again, controller, plates, it's very straightforward. You don't have to overthink it. You don't even release software. Like you don't have to do a game around like some kind of theming. Like what we saw like on the Switch, Tetris 99. That was like a whole thing for Tetris. Or Mario 35, where they did the Mario, the very creative, by the way, kind of battle royale Mario thing. That was cool. Then they took it away from us. So great opportunity for PlayStation to do something like that. I think that'd be fun, but I'm not expecting it. I'm thinking hardware themes. So controller, plates, maybe they sell some pins. I don't know, but they don't get too creative. And apparel, of course. I'm sure those shirts and everything else.
Oh yeah, the PlayStation. Yeah, that they'll probably do. The PlayStation Gear Store will get a ton of stuff. Actually, you know what I'd like to see? Make the month of December like a big month for PS Plus Premium. Put a bunch of classics up. Like
that would be awesome.
Yeah, stockpile like 10 or 15 of them, which would be like insane for premium. To do 10 or 15
PlayStation games. That would actually be pretty cool. All right, what was the launch lineup for the original PlayStation in we'll say,
or the US?
Japan or North America?
Oh, it had to be North America. I mean, that's the weird disconnect is that Japan had like, God, it's like hundreds of exclusive PS1 games. Hundreds. They had so many games we did not get. So the US, I mean, we already have some of them, like Jumping Flash, I think. Yeah, Jumping Flash we have. That came out like right away with PS Plus Premium.
Because I would go back and check. Okay, so PS1 launched. So when it launched, it says here, there's the launch lineup for it. Yes. Okay. So Air Combat, Battle Arena, Shinden, ESPN Extreme Games, DNA Imperative, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, Power Surf, 3D Tennis, The Raiden Project, Rayman, Ridge Racer, Street Fighter the movie. There we go. And Total Eclipse Turbo.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say a lot of those are pretty locked up and have no chance of moving anywhere. So.
Yeah, probably
just a PS1. Just go into the first 2 years, or just do more PS1 games.
If they had anything that was unreleased, that would be kind of cool to put in PS1 classics.
Unreleased PS1.
I'll give you an example. So Nintendo, they had Star Fox 2 that was basically done. They never released it. Boom, they dropped it on the Super Nintendo Classic, and then later it went to NSO, and it was like officially done by Nintendo. They released it. Something like that maybe we don't even 100% know about. That would be kind of cool. I'm just trying to think of creative things they could do to not only celebrate but also excite people for the current brand.
They could do what's his name? Harry the Jalapeno or something. Like it's supposed to be a Crash mascot for PS1, never came out. I'm not even sure they made anything. I think it was just sketch art or something. It was like a jalapeno game. You're supposed to play as jalapeno.
Very obscure.
It's on Unseen 64. I guess that was like something they were really looking at doing back then. But
you know what? I've decided just bring back the PT demo and say you're bringing it back for the 30th anniversary of PlayStation.
Yeah, because Konami really wants to celebrate the 30th anniversary of PlayStation.
There it is.
Yeah,
hey, that's it.
They'll get right on that. What we can say, John, is that the 30th anniversary did actually give us a little something. Because if you zoomed in and enhanced on that 30th anniversary logo, you might have seen a silhouette of PlayStation hardware that at the time we did not know about. Although we kind of did, because Bilbo Kuhn put out a report saying, hey, here's what a sketch of a PS5 Pro looks like.
What do you think the discourse would have been if that D-Labs report never came out and we saw it?
I think people would have spotted it, but it would have been like more a question of like, is that the Pro? But we could put two and two together. I mean, the point is, we can just segue into this because clearly we already had the announcement. So it's already been official. We had the presentation. We finally have PlayStation 5 Pro confirmed out in the wild, which just to do the recap of the entire little thing. I mean, this was a very, very brief 9-minute technical, in a way, presentation, but really it was dressed up in a more consumer-facing way would probably be the better way to put it. I mean, it was a very quick thing. 9 minutes. Mark Cerny doing a brief, overview of what the console is and what it does, which pretty much everything we knew about the console was confirmed. really the bullet points we want to cover here is, well, for one, the price, it's $699 USD, $699 British pound sterling, €799, and 120,000 yen. Digital edition only. You can add the disk drive later. It's taller than a PS5 Slim. It's the same width though, so it's like kind of a pencil PS5 in a way. It includes Wi-Fi 7, 2 terabyte SSD. Around 40 to 50 free patches for existing games are expected, which, primarily this thing's going to be a 4K 60 FPS machine, or there's going to be RT added in those modes. PSSR was confirmed, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. That is going to work on apparently the entire library, which I think we did not necessarily know that beforehand. And that's also going to include PSVR 2 games in the future as well. PS5 Game Boost is going to be a thing, just like PS4 Game Boost as well. So it's going to boost the entire library. That includes all software. Some early examples we saw from CNET, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They were the only ones that got hands-on time, I believe. So yes. Rebirth apparently looked very crisp, a lot better. He compared it to like putting on glasses basically, and now it looks much more clear. GT7, this was pretty surprising to me, has an 8K mode.
I saw that too. Yeah. Because originally they were talking about 4K with ray tracing. Like, that's cool, I guess. Because otherwise it was only in the replays. Oh, no, it has 8K. It's like, oh, okay. We're there. We finally made it. The original promise from the box that they removed. We're now with the PS5 Pro. That one,
that was almost as shocking to me as the price. I'm like, wow, we actually do have an 8K game. So there's that. Pre-orders begin on September 26th for PlayStation Direct. Third-party retailers, that's October 10th. So God forbid you want one of these things. Pre-orders are starting the 26th for PS Direct, October 10th for third-party retailers, releasing on November 7th. Now, obviously the big sticking point here is the price, because like pound for pound, we knew most of this thing already. 45% faster GPU, CPU is basically the same. PSSR, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. So, I mean, John, I think what we can probably just center on is this price tag, which is pretty insane. It's high.
It's high for us, like in the US when they showed that price. I think everyone was like, "Oh, whoa, okay, it's $699.9 and there's no disk drive." Which, by the way, I feel like we discussed a couple of times the idea that they would try to get the price to a certain point by excluding the disk drive, and we thought they were going to try to get to the price to, we'll say $600. All right, okay, yeah, maybe like 600, and they'll exclude the disk drive to get to that price point. And it's like they excluded it to get to 700. That was the price they had to get down to. And it was like, whoa. Because I feel like most people, I know some people out there did say, oh, maybe it's going to be 700. I feel like the majority of people underestimated part cost right now behind the scenes. And that to me is a little concerning, which we can talk about in a bit when it comes to next generation. But for now,
100%. 100%. That's the thing. I guess not to like get into it right away, but honestly, that's what I'm thinking more of as the event ended. Like, what was this? 11 a.m. So maybe like 10 hours ago. The more I sit on this and Twitter is blowing up with memes about how expensive this console is, the more I just can't shake off like, what the hell does this mean for PlayStation 6? You know what I mean? It's.
I was thinking about that too, and I ended up making a video on the second channel talking about the future of console gaming, and I almost wonder if Sony is making a move to normalize some of this higher pricing right now.
I mean, maybe it's because that's so. Yeah, to your point, right? Like I thought best case scenario, which was unlikely, is $599, and it would probably end up being $649, and they would not offer any disc console because the whole thing is like, go off and buy the drive if you want one.
Right.
So they're gonna absolutely take that route, not just because like they want to avoid the entire assembly line process where there's a separate box that has to be packaged with disc drives being put in. It's like they're not going to do that for a Pro because the Pro is going to be low volume. That's the one thing we should also maybe get out the door right now. No matter what price tag this thing was, not for everybody, never was meant for everybody. It's a lower volume machine. So that point aside, there's that. But I would have thought, okay, price it at $649, no disk drive, so you can avoid the optics of that $699 price tag. I really did not think they would touch $699. And it's like, that's the US. It's like way worse, man.
If you get the
way
disk drive
worse.
on it in certain regions, I think certain like Europe
It's like
and
$1,000.
Japan, it's almost like in Canada, it's almost $1,000. I saw, I was like, whoa,
dude, I didn't think that even I'm shocked. I very rarely like get super animated or talk in hyperboles. And we of course like to talk about more the business side of things, but this is a baffling price. It's super high. Even as considering the context of it was going to be low volume. Cause I don't know about you. I think no matter what this thing was priced at, like these memes were going to happen. Cause that's just how the internet is nowadays. Like, so if they come out and say, here's a $600 PS5 Pro and it's got no disk drive, like it's going to be the same thing because it was going to be PS3 memes and, oh, here's the $599 price. So no matter what, I guess it's the severity of like how bad the price was going to be and how much flack they were going to get for it.
Well, I don't actually know if they would have gotten as much flack at $599. The reason I say that is because it would actually not be the first $600 system. That Microsoft has their Series X 2 terabyte. That's $600.
I see what you're saying.
It has a disk drive. It does have a disk drive, but it's also not nearly as powerful as what's being shown here by the PS5 Pro.
I guess that's a solid point, John. I don't know. I feel like, and this is more PlayStation history. If you touch the $599 price tag, you're going to get PS3 memes.
Yes. Yeah.
I it's the severity of it though. I mean, I absolutely that they're like in terms of how
even
bad
I made
it
one.
Is, well, this is as bad as it gets though. I just can't believe dude, this is so much. It's crazy.
It's a lot. I mean, I saw that. I think everybody had that visible shot, like sticker shock immediately. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, okay. It's $700 without but the disk drive on it's $780. I love the fact, by the way, they flash up the price, the logo. And of course, no vertical stand included or like sold separately. I was like,
John,
can't put the vertical stand in the box.
John, there was no chance you were getting that stand. Who are you kidding?
I just think it was so funny because if you have it, which you have it, the vertical stand.
Yeah. But I mean,
you look at it, and you're like, this is the line right here. This thing.
Dude, that stand is like $30. Come on, ridiculous.
I know. I just think it's so funny. They're like, nah, that's the line, and they give it. I mean, I assume it's gonna be held up with the plastic pieces that we have for the current revision.
Oh yeah, if you want to do it horizontal, like the little feet,
like they'll just have little feet and stuff. And by the way, that's gonna be kind of weird because it's a premium system. And it's like here's little feet for it. Because that's how they want you to set it. They don't want you to set it vertically if you don't understand.
Maybe it'll be like metal or something.
That would be kind of cool.
It won't though.
It won't. Metal with like the little rubber feet on the bottom. That would seem a bit more premium then. I assume this thing weighs more than the current PS5. Yeah,
it's taller. So
maybe it would be worth doing like aluminum ones at least or something. I don't know. It's I mean, now we're just talking about the little triangle stand at this point, but the coming back to the PlayStation 5 Pro, you know what the issue was? They spent like 2 minutes talking about the current PS5. And I was like, that's fine. You're setting us up for what I assume to be some kind of big reveal. And I think people went into this thinking that we knew a lot about this system. You even mentioned it. We knew like the 45% more powerful, whatever. We know a lot. So there was kind of a thought, I think, in the back of everyone's mind, mine included, where I'm like, there's something here we don't know about. Something is going to be shown. I feel like that's why we also all watched it, other than the price. It's like, okay, they're going to show something here. There's something that sets this apart. It's not just, it looks a little cleaner. Well, it kind of is just, it looks a little cleaner. And they tried so hard. They tried so hard to show it on that stream. I mean, they really did. And I'm like, oh, YouTube is not helping you right now, Cerny. I know in your mind, you're like, oh, they're seeing the parade and they want to buy this right now. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, it looks a little cleaner, I guess. And if I'm doing that, I can only imagine what the majority of people at like the mainstream would be doing looking at this thing and the examples they were showing. I mean, Ryan, they started by showing us a PS4 game. Like, I mean, I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is not go. As soon as they started, I'm like, oh no, this is not Cerny, you got something else up your sleeve. And then he just kept going and going. I'm like, oh, there's.
Well, as far as that goes, I it's still pretty much how I thought they'd do it, which is like all the first party stuff. And it's like, well, that's what they have right now. That's a few. And that's also the studios that have a patch, apparently.
Yeah.
Not every studio is going to be there probably to have a patch ready to go. But what's interesting is, I guess, seeing the expectation of how it was presented. It's weird, right? Because I would have liked like the hour-long Cerny deep dive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I guess there's a fine line to walk there where it's like Road to PS5. I'm sure you remember this. That live stream happened and everyone was like, what the hell was that? As if like, but it was like a GDC talk basically.
It's because Mark Cerny stood there, in his like really like low voice and was like, you can send us pictures of your ears even. Like, what?
That was at minute 50.
What? I thought we were talking about the PS5. Where are we going right now?
Well, that was a GDC talk. It was a very technical thing.
I know. It was just fun. That's what everyone remembers. I don't remember a lot of the other stuff. They're like, he wants me to show him our ears.
Well, now you can
maybe
kind of
it's
do
not
it
a bad idea sometimes for something like this to be like, give us the bullet points, Mr. Cerny, and we'll work with you on this. We'll edit this thing up real nice for you.
Well, that's the thing, right? So it seems like they tried to, side skirt that criticism with how they present, which is
right.
Don't do this hour-long, overly technical thing that people are going to tune in for, even if you say right up front, like, this is for developers, which, like, sure. you have to make this a consumer show because it's a new product. But they also didn't do what they did with PS4 Pro, which was, and they don't really do these sort of live events where they rent out a venue anymore. But even then, it's like they didn't, like, have a bunch of press fly out, and they didn't do an hour-long talk there. And so it's like, I think they, in a way, this was them addressing criticism of like, let's get a 10-minute like bullet point thing out there. And maybe that should make people happy. But in a way, it was maybe so fast that you're overlooking maybe some pertinent items that you want to address, which is this console has Wi-Fi 7. It's got 2 terabytes of SSD storage.
That was buried, which is weird.
Yeah. And it's like, obviously we can have a separate talk on like, should that even be 2 terabytes in the interest of price? But it's like, why not say that? And also that, like, yeah, the one thing, as far as I know, this was new. PSSR can apply to the entire library. That's pretty like fascinating. And that you're telling me like
including
lot of 1080
PS4 games.
Yeah, a lot of 1080p PS4 games. Now, depending on how good that turns out, like you might actually see some decent returns there.
What if Bloodborne is 60 FPS but only on the PS5 Pro?
Oh, that won't happen. It's got a frame rate cap.
Unless you have the PS5 Pro.
Oh, so it just breaks the frame rate cap.
That would be kind of crazy though. If they were like, hey, we pushed the patch, it's PS5 Pro enhanced. That's where the 60 frames per second lives.
Why are we just playing you got like a little devil on your shoulder? You know damn well that wouldn't happen. Well, although, because the thing is like Microsoft did this with like FPS boost and stuff where they didn't have to touch those games. Now, obviously they're not doing that here. Like that's the other weird thing. So PSSR will apply to the whole library, but they say PS5 Game Boost will also work on the whole library. But the problem is that like base PS5s already pretty much cap out PS4 games. Like if there's any PS4 game that's like unstable 30 or unstable 60, like a standard console already pushes it to its cap. So what's this? I mean, really, I think the Game Boost is going to be more applicable to existing PS5 like native games.
Can we go to 8K?
Well, probably not if it's got a
now we're talking
resolution cap. Well, that too, right? So, like, why didn't they spend time talking about GT7?
That's a good point. That at least has some kind of like tangible number where you can be like, look, 8K. There you go. It's something, I guess.
Well, just to like, because I think we're all kind of sitting here going like 8K, it's a pipe dream. Like no big AAA games are going to be displaying an 8K. And even in the grand scheme of things, it's still kind of a novelty because most people don't have 8K televisions. But at the very minimum, spend some time talking about that. Not to say any of this is going to really soften the blow for what is like a very steep price tag. Which even then, I mean, I thought 649 was the top end. 649 is even not that far away from 699. So this thing was always going to be a lot of money.
I feel like you thought 640. Do you think 649 with a disk drive though?
No, I thought 649 without I thought because that's the thing. I thought they would do 649 without the disk drive and not even offer a disk console because they want to avoid 699. But that's what's so mind blowing is that they do 699 without the drive. It's to circle back to the original point, right? Like I think this is more illustrative of like some concern going into PlayStation 6.
Yeah, we can get into that. Yeah,
this is a console you don't like. You don't need it, and quite frankly, I think for an enthusiast box, like the metric we have for PS4 Pro, right, is like 1 out of every 5 PS4 sold at the time was a Pro. Like, I don't know if they'll be able to match that ratio at this price tag.
I think I'd probably like 1 out of 8, 1 out of 10, somewhere in there.
Yeah, you're asking a lot from even like what is on paper your most engaged customers. So, I mean, that aside, I just think it's more reflective of, because this is a half-step console. PS6 has to be better than this. And if we don't have any MSRP cuts for the next 3-4 years, which that's going to be the end of the generation, like where are we going to be with PlayStation 6?
Yeah, that's kind of the issue, because remember when the PS4 Pro came out, they didn't technically go up in price. They dropped the price of the PS4, released the Slim model, and then they've had the PS4 Pro slot in at that standard $400 price they set. They've gone up in price technically with the PS5 revision digital one. They went up to $449, so they did move that up in price. We saw the controllers go up in price recently. We saw them move the games up to $70 to start the generation. We've kind of been working, and then throughout this rest of this generation, we've kind of been working in the wrong direction. We should have cheaper systems by now, and we don't technically, like MSRP, right? Where they're like, hey guys, we're dropping the PS3 went from what, 600, Ryan, down to 300 in 4 years or something.
Would have been 3. Yeah.
3 years. Yeah. So, but like that was quick, right? They basically ended up cutting the system in half in terms of pricing in about 3 or so years. And then of course that was the interest, was trying to sell more systems. And it does make me wonder about Sony's position a bit in the market right now. Everything's kind of stacking, like the evidence we have of the way Sony is acting right now, kind of becoming overconfident Sony maybe a bit right now is how it feels, because the last time I really feel like this happened was when they wheeled that $599 price point out onto the stage and they were like, look at this. And it kind of feels like we're sort of back to that again. Like they must be in a position where like we can kind of do whatever. And like Concord was a disaster and they keep selling systems. Like, man, we can't miss right now. What happens? What happens if, like, almost like it was what happens if we try to sell a $700 system? Let's find out. Because
let's find out.
Isn't this kind of that moment in R&D where you're like, you know what? The price is too high for this. I understand you want to do it, but realistically, how much sense does this make at this price? And they go, you know what? You're right. Let's put it back in the hopper for a bit. We'll revisit this in a few years when we're thinking about next generation. We'll live with what we have, because again, the price point is a big thing for console gaming, because the idea is you get a box that is reasonably priced, we'll say, and it can do a lot for that price point. It usually punches above its weight class, right? It will typically run higher end games and it will upscale, but it will get to 4K, or it'll performance mode get you 60 frames. And then it's the developer's job to get as much as they can out of that hardware over an extended period of time. And now it just feels like we're just off the rails. It's like, whatever, here's $700, buy it or not. We don't care, because what are you going to do? Because, well, okay. That's kind of how people, I guess most people will just say, you know what, I'll stick with my PS5, and Sony will be like, all right, cool. That works for us. You can stick with the PS5. We're going to sell whatever we can here. And, you know, Ryan, I mentioned the PS6, but I also wonder, going into that generation, how do you feel right now with that wall and a half of games behind you? I can see that the enthusiast console is currently positioned without a disk drive.
If you're asking that, I'm still not concerned.
Okay.
And the reason for that is this thing can take a disk drive. They're not offering one with a disk drive, because then it's just absurd, because you know it's going to be like $649 at that point, because they would clearly offer a price savings for the differential, kind of like they're doing right now. I'm not worried about the disk drive. So The thing I think about with like PlayStation 6, and maybe this is more not to explain away PS5 Pro's an absurd price tag. I feel like this is a scenario where, like, as you say, they just put it out there and they'll just see what they can get away with. But the underlying context here is because it's low volume, it's not like a new machine. Like, they don't have to loss lead with it initially. Like, the model almost always is, we're going to lose a little bit initially. Economy of scale will come in. We'll also offset with game sales. And like, that's not what the Pro is going to be. And that's not what it's supposed to be. So I assume the sort of bean counters in the back are like, no, this thing out of the gate, it's going to make money. So at 700, they have to be at that point, because obviously it was going to be more than a standard console. But I don't think they're looking to like sell it at 600 and loss lead with it. They don't have to. That's what you're saying. But with PlayStation 6, they would be in a position where they would likely have to loss lead again. And the other angle that I would hope this is the case, right? There's still like a lot of fabrication plants that have to come online by like 2028, 27, somewhere around there, right? So in theory, wouldn't you hope by then, like, bill of materials for like a lot of technology products are going to start coming down, or hopefully come down? That's because it's not like this isn't isolated to Sony, obviously. Like, everything's getting more expensive nowadays. It's just more a matter of how much are consumers willing to accept before it just becomes too much. And this is an environment where like consoles have almost always been seen as the very budget friendly option. These aren't like smartphones where like the consumer habit there has like changed, where, people don't even bat an eye at dropping $1,300 on a phone. So it's a very different kind of place. And like you said, I think Sony is in this position where they're unchecked. If anybody's going to move the needle on this, it's them, and they're kind of so far getting away with it.
I think so for the PlayStation 6, my thought looking at this PS5 Pro is we would expect the PS6 in 2028. I think that's a reasonable assumption at this point. Okay, 4 more years, boom, we'll have it come out. They'll probably have been promoting it that entire year. So we're probably really like 3.5 years away from them maybe making some sort of formal announcement for a PS6. And my concern here is that in 2028, they've just normalized that price point and they're closer to, say, doing $600 and $700 versions if they want to still have a disk drive. Right. So I'm thinking it's 600 for the digital maybe. And then they're like, oh yeah, there's also this disk drive you can buy. It's like $80 or whatever. Okay. So that's 680 technically. And the reason I say that is because I was thinking about the PS, because we really only have one other generation that's happened in, right? With the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. And I looked at it, I said, the PS4 Pro was 400 when it came out. They kept that price point going. The PS5 digital was 400, but the PS5 disc base unit was 500. So they kind of leveled and then went up. And then I look at the Xbox One X and that was 500. And then the Series X was 500. So it felt like we kind of kept that price point going like consistently. And I almost wonder if this is them just kind of stepping up now and like, okay, is the PS6 going to be $600 just out of the gate? And that's where we are now. It's almost like the mid-gen refresh. Yes, it's there to step up graphics, but also kind of step up price expectations. And unless Microsoft shows up with something that's just incredibly compelling, why wouldn't I price the PS6 at $600?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, that's the concern. If the consumer habit starts to shift and this thing, let's say, actually does well, but I'd be hard pressed to say it will. Like, we just talked about the ratio thing. I find it hard to see this thing doing the same ratio as PS4 Pro.
Did you see the analyst who believes it's going to do about 13 million units? I
thought I said 1.3 for this year.
Ampere
analysis. I thought it was 1.3 million for the remainder of this year, as in they'll sell.
Well, what was the PS4? Because they think it's going to be the same as the PS4 Pro ratio.
They think it'll be similar ratio.
1.3 million. Yeah, 1.3 million. But they believe it's going to be a similar ratio. So what did we thought? We thought the PS4 was 1 out of every 5, right?
By the end of the life cycle, you mean?
Yeah. So they think it's going to be
Because that's the thing. The official number, or rather, the official ratio we got from Sony was 1/5. But the Insomniac breach did give us a number, which was like, what was it, 14 million, 13, something like that?
Yes, it is something like that. Yeah, right around there.
Oh, did I get stuck?
You're stuck.
Uh-oh. How do we fix this?
I can still hear you. You turn your camera off and then turn it back on. Like on the.
Oh yeah. Let's do that.
Just click like the off and then back on. See if that kicks you back on.
I think it's my it's the stupid Mac thing. If I make a gesture with my hand, it like puts an emoji thing on there or something. It's a really weird thing, man. If you do like a hand gesture, sometimes it wants to do like a goofy like photo pop-up emoji or some shit. Nope, I'm still fucked. I'm gone.
The Mac problems. See?
Yeah. You know what's weird? I turned those off, and now it's.
If you make a hand gesture, it takes a picture of you with an emoji.
No, it doesn't take a picture. It'll put like if I make a hand gesture, like let's say a thumbs up, then it puts like a thumbs up emoji or something on the screen. But when I do that while I'm filming anything, it freezes the frame. So it's supposed to do it during like a video call that's not being recorded or something. It's weird.
Huh.
I don't know how to come back.
Okay. Mac problems.
I completely lost my point.
Interesting. So what if I remove you from the room? You come right back in.
Yeah, I'll have to try that.
Okay, hold on.
Does that mean you got to do two separate recordings?
No, you can jump in. You can leave and then come right back in.
Okay. It says leave an open uploads page.
Oh, nah, don't worry about it then. You just won't be on camera.
Okay, good. Now I can
blame the Mac.
Undressing.
There you go. Okay.
I don't know what point I was making. Oh no, the official numbers for PS4 Pro. Okay, so the Insomniac breach showed us what it was like 14 million or something like that. Mm-hmm. Wasn't a lot.
Right. So
I guess it's more a matter of how many if PS5 Pro will stack up to that number.
Yeah, that's that's what they seem to think it'll get there by the end of the life cycle. So investors seem really excited about it. They saw their stock like spiked up quite a bit when the announcement of the price happened. They're just going to generate more revenue. It's going to happen. They sell some of these things. They're just going to get more revenue in. So there's excitement, at least on that side of the capitalist side of the world. But to me, the whole console gaming thing is getting a bit off the rails right now with the pricing and maybe even expectations, because my thing now is, Ryan, when they showed that PS5 Pro, I didn't see a lot of, no one was that impressed online. Was that just me? I looked around and I said, man, no one's like looking at this going, this is incredible. How are they doing? Like, I'm not seeing that kind of excitement around visual quality, and I think we just are, that diminishing returns is really kicking in, and it really does become, what do you do now to potentially sell a PlayStation 6 and beyond? Because I don't think you can zoom in anymore or pitch 8K to people.
That's what I keep bringing up a lot with this console generation. We hit it, like it's been hit. Like I would argue, when you're buying a PlayStation 5 nowadays and you're coming from PS4, you're enjoying like higher frame rates, higher resolution. You're enjoying fast loading. Like, that's it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's not even that many publishers anymore that can make an Alan Wake 2 or a Ragnarok or a Forbidden West. I mean, these games are so far and few between anyway. So it is a very weird spot. That's why, it's still an enthusiast box. You don't have to buy this thing. You don't have to buy it if it was 600, right? Because you'd be totally fine and served very well with a standard console. This is also why I thought we really were going to maybe go this cycle without seeing a Pro machine, or we could have gone this cycle without one.
Oh, I think we definitely could have, yeah.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is, like, if you don't do one, you give yourself some room for the problem you're suggesting, which is, by the time you get to PlayStation 6, how do you how do you market that, right? You're already sort of removing potential gains. At a certain point, it's very incremental. But I guess on the other spectrum, it's a matter of some people being okay with that, which is, consoles are in this weird, not even weird, but they're all x86 boxes. The dev environment's very simple and easy to port things around. And we hear that the SDK for PlayStation just gets more and more accessible. So it's easy to get things up and running on the hardware. And so it's more a matter of pick your poison. PS5, a Pro, a PS6 when it comes out, and you sort of get to choose your graphic settings from there based on the console you choose, right? And there's no pressure anymore to get a PlayStation 6.
Right. That is an interesting point you bring up, though, because the mid-gen refresh, that then next step to the PS6 will be just lesser. So because I thought about that with the PS4 Pro, like obviously we had a bit of a step up because the faster load times probably being the biggest thing, and then the frame rates just being higher. But going from that base 2013 PS4 to the PS5 would have felt like a generational night and day leap, like no questions asked. But it does make me think, okay, this PS5 Pro, what's the jump going to be to the PS6? I feel like it's not going to be that substantial unless they had some interesting idea in mind, maybe with AI for like as a way to change our experience, say in the way we game. But that's something for Sony to figure out, I guess, at this point.
Well, the other part of it too is that we already see it with PlayStation 5 in not frame rate and resolution and load times, but also the sensory experiences. The DualSense feels like I would argue that feels like a next gen controller, in that you've got the triggers and the haptics, and so and then the 3D audio. Like the company clearly explored this in a way where they're acknowledging the diminishing returns. People are going to complain or not see the value. And so there's more sensory enhancements. And I feel like PlayStation 6 is probably going to take those same design principles, and that they'll find ways to make the console feel new and exciting with the controller, maybe more audio enhancements, or maybe really spruce up the user experience or something on the console, or just come up with these quality of life enhancements. There's got to be other avenues. It's just there's no other way to really explore it. I mean, what are you going to do? Another God of War on PlayStation 6, and it takes how long for that game to come out? And yeah, it might look gorgeous, but we get so few of those games.
You know where the generational leap really needs to be? The way you keep saying these games are so few and far behind. It's in development. That's where the generational leap needs to happen. Not on our side, it seems, more so on the side with developers and how they're creating these games or what tools they have to them. That's what it feels like. You're right. It takes so long for games to come out that take advantage of this hardware that we're onto the mid-gen refresh or onto the next generation before the game even gets a chance to come out. I mean, look at Sony's order right now, seemingly for presentations. They showed us this console even before their state of play, which should, we assume, show us some games that will be taking advantage of this new hardware. And maybe that's why, because there's going to be PS5 Pro enhancement tags. You know what actually might not have been a bad idea, Ryan? And I understand they probably did this order because it would have been a news overflow and the PS5 Pro may have overtaken certain games or something. I feel like if this was just part of this apparent state of play that's happening, I think some have said next week even, if the PS5 Pro, so you start the presentation mentioning that you are going to talk about the new hardware, you explain a PS5 Pro enhanced tag, that's there for any of the games that will use it, and then at the end, you play this 9-minute thing. And it's just almost a showcase at that point.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Look at that. You figured it out.
Yeah. Are you suggesting that would soften the blow? Or
yeah, because I think they just showed us hardware where people keep asking for what's this first party doing, what's Naughty Dog doing, what's Insomniac, well, not Insomniac, but like what's Blue Point doing, what's Sony Santa Monica doing, what's Sucker Punch doing, and they're like, we hear you. Here's a $700 box. And it's like, okay, well, hold on. Let's circle back around. So I feel like if there was the presentation in that way, it might have softened the blow a bit because people would have come out of it at least talking about some other games too. It wouldn't have been just like, okay, they zoomed in on The Last of Us Part 2 and then showed us the price point. And it's like, well, that was a big thing. People were like, man, they showed us a PS4 game when they started it up. They need to get some games out there. And it's like, well, we just had Astro Bot. But I understand you're looking for the studios that would take advantage of, like, Asobi's good, but man, Astro Bot looks great on the PS5. Now, that's not a game that I'm like, I need a PS5 Pro for this.
And you know what's weird? Astro might be a good AK game. That could be an AK candidate, probably.
Yeah. But it's the order is interesting. I will say that of them showing this, especially again, we believe there's state of play next week, bunch of games. That'll be fun. But this is a presentation that do you think Sony expected this reaction?
Yeah. I mean, they weren't born yesterday. They know damn well
their video is getting hammered with dislikes right now.
They knew damn well people. Well, I guess the dislikes are coming from the price, though. You know, I think
absolutely the price.
They probably thought like I said earlier, like I think they were making a genuine attempt at maybe trying to circumvent it's not a road to PS5 thing. It's also not an hour-long PS4 Pro meeting. Like, let's just make something that's under 10 minutes, holds attention for the fans that are maybe tuning in and don't know exactly what this thing is, and make it look very consumer focused. I think they genuinely try to do that. But the price, they know damn well what they did. They know. So getting around that.
Yeah, but like you said, it's an optional purchase. It just seems, I don't know. This is a Sony that I'm not excited to necessarily see running things right now. This is a Sony that it concerns me a bit. I will say that. I think they'll keep selling systems. I don't think that's going to be an issue for them, especially if those refurbished systems were shown at like $350 starting.
I was just going to say, this is whenever we wrapped this up, the follow-up story was in a weird way.
Here's the big question, Ryan. You buying a PS5 Pro?
Well, I obviously I have to
we're like the worst examples for this too. I realize that because everyone I ask who's like doing YouTube stuff, like, well, I kind of am. It's like, well, yeah, I sent, I have some, I call them mainstream friends. Okay. They kind of in the gaming, right? They obviously they have like, they go to work every day and they hear about stuff, but a lot of times they'll send me messages asking things, right? And the first thing they message the group chat was, I bet he's getting the PS5 Pro, isn't he? Like, yeah, no, I'm picking it up. They don't really care. Like, yeah, it's just it's $700, dude. I'm good. I got my PS5. They were excited playing Astro Bot though, but
that's good.
I mean, I was like, yeah, I get it. It's not really required. So I kind of think that, yes, you're right in saying that the ratio will probably be lower, but I think most of the mainstream's like, I'm good.
I imagine that's going to be the case. I think at that price point, you are going to start pricing out the people that actually do want this thing. But how many? I think
that's a good point. Do you think this price point does push out some enthusiasts?
That's the point I'm getting at, is that it's no matter what, this thing was low volume. Like I'll always punch that point home. It was never meant to be like something for everybody, but I think you're getting into a price category that truly is pricing out even those that did say want this thing. Like somebody that was like fully prepared, like, yeah, if it's $600, I'll do it, or $650, I'll do it. Or maybe even they made peace with like $650 and I still have to get a disk drive. But like they already have a PS5 Slim, so they'll swap over their drive or something. We're talking about like a really engaged customer. And I think at this price, it's even at that, it's getting like, that's a lot. Like, so I wonder how many they'll sell. Now, I don't know if we'll ever find out though, because that's the weird thing about this, is that Sony oftentimes will not ever tell us these things. And here's I'll call this right now, John, because this is how this shit always plays out. If pre-orders sell out, people will think it did really well. If they don't sell out, people will think it did really bad. But we don't know how many they made. And we'll never know how many they made. And they're not going to tell us how many they sold. So we'll never actually know how well it is or is not doing. They could either make enough and they meet demand. They could make too little and that's not enough. So, you know what I mean? Like, we're never going to.
That's about it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we'll get.
That's about
it.
Japan's
hard to judge anyway, because they're not buying
not $800 some odd dollars there.
Yeah, they're not buying consoles, and they just got a price increase.
Yeah,
so it's a tough thing to consider. I mean, I'm sure it is going to sell. People are going to buy it. I just think at this price range, even considering it was going to be a lot of money, I think it's just that much more than we thought that might price people out.
Yeah, some have mentioned the PC aspect where eventually you get to a price point and you start looking at PCs. And I'm sure that's a thing for people, right, to do that. But I do believe that if you're that invested in the PlayStation 5 ecosystem, you're invested for a reason. And you would have thought about building a PC back when the PS5 was coming out, or when Sony started announcing that their games were going to PC. And you're like, oh, fine. Okay, cool. I guess I'll build a PC now. I don't know if this is going to be a thing that puts people over the edge, especially if they've already built their digital library and that's where their friends are playing and stuff. But that is an aspect, I guess, to consider there, the fact that PC gaming is on the rise. And yeah, somebody might say, I'll spend an extra $400. I won't have to pay for online anymore. I'll have more functionality and I'll get over or having to sit at the desk or something to play my games. So,
I mean, I'm sure some people would come to that conclusion. I mean, here's the I mean, I'll still argue, even at these crazy prices, and I don't like saying this because it's a ton of money. It's still like you're going to come in under from, let's say, a very good PC or because GPU prices are kind of nuts too. It's like, if you want to outperform this thing, you're going to spend a lot more than 700. And that's, to consider too, that like, if this is an enthusiast box, we can't ignore that like somebody's probably going to be trading in a PlayStation 5 to get this thing.
That's true.
So I hate to play the devil's advocate here because it's a ton of money. I don't want to see it be priced this high, but like, it's still in that realm where some people are going to offset it, or it's still going to make sense for them versus a PC. It's very clear that they're looking to see what they can get away with.
Yeah, I think they are kind of judging the market a bit with this too. So it's, again, that PlayStation 6 is going to be a very interesting run up when it happens years from now, because I feel like we're going to look back even on this podcast where we talk about it this way and we're like, man, we were right there with it. It's this 700. This sets up this president. Man, I mean, we're on the cheap end at 700. Think about that. In Canada, they're like, wow, game consoles almost $1,000 now, huh? Okay, well,
I know we're in the U.S. But we can't ignore just how insane this thing is in Europe and the UK.
No, that's the crazy price point there. Yeah. Jeez, I mean, most people are going to look at that and just, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'll sit with my PS5. Honestly, the PS5 still, you get a good experience for most of the games. Rebirth is the one that I am looking at, and Black Myth Wukong are the ones I'm looking at a bit sideways. Like, maybe that actually not be a bad experience to try that out there. But obviously, we are bad examples when it comes to this because, I mean, I'm going to get it and tear it down. I'm curious about what's going on inside of it, definitely, and you'll do a whole breakdown of your own on it. So, like checking out all the features and everything. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not really a great question to ask for us. I guess on a more personal level, if I didn't have to like do something for it, this is where it's so weird, right? Because I'm sure I would still want it, but like, man, that's just
There'd be a lot of pause. You'd be like,
yeah,
what else could I do with that money?
It's a lot of. I mean, I like PlayStation. I like playing games, obviously, but it's a ton of money. So. But like so that's the slightly weird thing, is that they announced this console, but like, and I don't think they made a formal announcement about this. It just popped up, but on PS Direct, they're now going to start offering refurbished, Gen 1 PlayStation 5s, like the CFI 1000 series. And, not bad. $349 for digital, $399 for disc. Like,
yeah,
like I saw that and I'm like, yo, that's pretty good, because the thing is, you're going to get a warranty when you buy it from Sony. So it's not like, obviously you can get a PS5 cheaper on eBay or from Facebook Marketplace or something, but I
had to order one of those, Ryan, to see what's going on there.
Let me see that console. I already know what it looks like. I guess you want to see those.
People are curious, right? How it looks.
I would be curious. Yeah. To see you tear one down and see what the, refurbishment process looks like, if they even really did anything, you know what I mean? But
that is true.
But having said that, it is still like a warranted console. So that's the benefit, is that at least you kind of have something with a receipt that you can, you can get a possible repair on.
Make a move on it. We'll see. For the people.
That, and because they're Gen 1 consoles, you'd have to be mindful about this. The digital machine you are stuck with digital. You cannot upgrade that. If you buy a disc console, that is a truly offline disc console. You do not need to authenticate online to register a drive. So I thought that was weird, though. Yeah, I'm like, wow, it's cool that they did that, but at the same time, the Pro machine's batshit insane.
Maybe they finally collected enough from returns or just warranty coverages that they're able to stock it now is all. I mean, it's been so many years. So
yeah, I mean, I'm all for it though. That's cool. Mm-hmm. As long as they actually refurbish them.
Well, we'll find out.
So I guess we'll get into some slight state of play rumory type stuff. Like the one thing that popped up before the rumors even began ramping up is like Lego Horizon Adventures had a November 14th release date pop up on PlayStation's like main homepage. And then it was taken down like after an hour or something. It wasn't up for very long, but people saw that. And this was like right before the Direct. So people thought, oh, maybe they're going to actually confirm the release date at the Direct, which it showed up there, but we didn't get a release date. But it was on Sony's site apparently. And then shortly after that, like, you know, Jeff Grubb mentioned, he pinned it down to like the last week of September or something, or possibly right before TGS. TGS kicks off on the 26th. So whether it's next week or the following, it sounds like we're going to get one of these things fairly soon. So I'm not sure really what else is there to be said outside of like, we're in this very clear tipping point of like, let's see some announcements. So
games. Video games.
You know what I will say, John, I feel like we're just to a point where they might not really return to the showcase moniker. Cause like we've had state of plays that arguably were better than that 2023 showcase. So it's like, I wouldn't even worry too much about it being called a state of play when it seems like they're really blurring the lines on what a state of play can even be. We've had state of plays just on one game, or, you know, a collection of PSVR 2 games, or a collection of, you know, primarily third-party games. It sounds like they could just do whatever they want with these. So I just hope that when they confirm this thing, the PS blog announcement says, because they will openly tell people what's going to be in it, announcements from PlayStation Studios.
I think the showcase, maybe just save that when you start a generation or something.
Yeah.
Maybe like a big event. Okay. Hey, the PlayStation 6 showcase, PlayStation 5 showcase, the Vita 2 showcase, that kind of thing. You know, when you're ready to launch a handheld or a console, which again, the handheld stuff's been going around for a little while, you'd label it as the showcase for it. Maybe that's how they do it. Because the showcase state of play, you're right. When we get a state of play that's better than a showcase, it's kind of weird. It's a weird thing. So
yeah. As I'm not sure there's much more to add. Obviously, we're all waiting for some announcements, and there's a handful of studios that I think they could, in theory, announce something. It's just a matter of how willing are they to talk if they're not confident about a release window? Because I think at this point, I expect that a lot of the studios just don't want to say anything unless they know for certain it's going to come out at so and so time, and that's why it feels.
TGS coming up, Ryan. Sucker Punch. Maybe they're good one to go.
You would think. If anything, they're probably you'd think they're bringing pro consoles, right? To play, to run Monster Hunter Wilds, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would expect that. Absolutely. That would make sense. Apparently they have 40 demo stations set up for Monster Hunter with PlayStation. That's crazy.
You would hope. I don't know if they're actually planning on doing that. All right. Well, why don't we cover the third big one here? Concord.
What a wild week for PlayStation. My gosh.
It's whiplash. I mean, my neck hurts. That's why I'm kind of stretching over here.
Roller coaster, man.
So the game was delisted, taken offline, refunds given out. Sony posted on the PlayStation blog, update on Concord. Sony will, quote, explore options, including those that will better reach our players. So they openly... they stepped in pretty quick. I mean, when a game comes out and it's got like 30 goddamn players, what do you do? You know, so you actually brought this up during the Spawncast, which was, do they just, you know, send out refunds? I didn't think they were going to go that far, but you called it.
I was, it got to the point where I was even talking to you, like, how many copies did they sold? Like 10,000 or something? Maybe. It's like, if we're thinking of those kind of numbers, it's dropping the bucket to them to refund. And then pull this thing back in, just erase it off the face of the earth. So if you have a physical copy, yeah, it might be worth holding on. That might be a little rare piece right there, which Ryan ordered one immediately, by the way.
Okay. Let's not sugarcoat this, John. I DM'd you, said, you know what? Now I have to because it's PlayStation history. How could I not? And then you ordered one. You said
that was the part of the story I was going to leave out on purpose. But all right, go ahead.
Yeah. Wait, did your copy come in?
Did it? No, it didn't come in yet. No.
Oh, it didn't come in. Well, let me tell you this, John. Let me tell you some shit right here. My copy came in. Guess what I got?
What? What'd you get?
And I ordered on Amazon. And as a physical game collector, I knew this shit would happen. Like within 10 minutes of the blog post going up, I had two things that entered my mind. Number one, okay, that's breaking news. Got to record a video. Number two, I have to order a copy of this right fucking now because it's going to get scalped. It's going to get scalped. So I ordered on Amazon. Looks like an ESRB logo on that picture, John.
You like the European one?
I got a Spanish copy.
Oh.
Yeah. Andale.
Man, you got the Spanish copy for it. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, the Amazon, it was clearly like that was the standard listing. What I think happened probably is like when my order went through, like there was an influx of orders and I might have got matched with like a third-party seller, and the third-party seller sent me a Spanish copy of the game.
Says it'll be here tomorrow.
Oh, well, I can't wait to see what you end up getting. Did you pay MSRP?
Yeah, I got on eBay. All right, well, I grabbed the listing as soon as that announcement happened, and they just had the listing up still. I was like, grab that. So,
well, I paid MSRP on Amazon, and I got a Spanish copy, and I feel swindled. And it's like I can't bitch about it because like the game's now sold out, so I'm not gonna get an ESRB copy.
Dude, that controller, they're both ESRB.
Yeah, that surprised me too because I thought the controller was just gonna sit in stock forever. I can't believe that's sold out too.
Yeah, look at all the wow, they're actually selling. Concord itself is selling right now. These are sold listings, so not like the ones where people put up, see if I can get $1,000 for it, and then people like news outlets will pick that up and go with it. But people are buying it for $90 to $120. So I'm seeing on sold listings right now, anywhere that range. That's kind of ridiculous for a $40 game. That doesn't work.
But that's the novelty of it though, is that it's like they're never going to print it again. I think that much is a safe assumption.
How many of them are out there?
It's a novelty thing because the analyst projection was 10,000 sold on Steam, 15,000 on PlayStation. Now that 15,000 is not all discs because there's digital. So in terms of how many they made, because they'll manufacture based on pre-orders too. It's not like they printed 1 million copies. They know damn well they didn't have 1 million pre-orders. So they probably only made, possibly tens of thousands, but maybe less than that. So yeah, that the disc is now rare and getting scalped. The other angle I want to mention is that the window they gave out was very narrow, as in they announced this, it was the 3rd. And they said shut down on, the 6th? Something like, it was like a 3-day window.
It was the Friday. That Friday, yeah.
You had 3 days.
Friday, 6th.
So the few people that were playing were like, oh shit, we got to get that platinum. So there were people grinding on Concord, which I guess the fastest way to progress in that game was to just
throw yourself off the edge. Yeah.
Kill yourself, son.
That is crazy. People on like Twitter, like, if you jump it on Concord, I don't see anyone shooting anyone. You just follow the lead.
Just jump off the cliff, and rank up your character.
Funny.
Get the platinum. It's just the whole thing is not only like it just like silly looking at the physical games and the platinum, but this is just unprecedented. We've seen live service failures, but this is something else, right?
It's incredible to see. I mean, my thing is, we all knew this was about to happen, and it's just strange that Sony even let it come out. Like, that's even at the beta time period when they made that thing free, basically it was open, you have to pre-order it, nothing, and it was still like less than 2,000 people playing it. At that point, I'd have been like, oh, hold on a minute, let's reevaluate this. It was weird that they were just like, no, let's put it out there. Like, I don't know what they thought was going to happen when they put the $40 price wall in front of it. but I mean, they saw what happened. It technically didn't get to Lord of the Rings Gollum. That had a higher player concurrent count, and then they just did a speed run on a game coming out, live service game, and then getting shut down. That actually released. Now, I'm trying to figure out, because the thing that I see people talk about all the time for cancel projects is that these larger companies can write down a large amount of the development costs on corporate tax or whatever, all the loopholes and stuff they can do to save money at the end of the year or whatever. But this game came out and they collected money on it. And they seem to be trying to get to the point where they can erase the game just about, because people posted online that Sony was going into their library and actually pulling the game back. They took it out of their digital library and refunded them. Like, just outright. They just took it.
Yeah, right.
So
because they gave out refunds.
Yes. My thing is, I wonder if they have to, because they have a make good offer on the retail version, the physical one. Apparently you just go back to the retailer you got it from and they'll just give you a refund. Mm-hmm. I guess that's how it works. A PlayStation Store Direct is pretty straightforward. Apparently you contact them and they'll set everything up with you. But the fact that they've done that, I wonder if that, along with the lower quantity sold, is enough for them to then write this down, if that's possible, or write this off.
Yeah, that I clearly would not know what would be the sort of language there, because anybody that knows taxes, it's very particular in terms of what you can and can't do, but companies explore all sorts of options. I don't know what would be in that circumstance, what would qualify. If anybody knows, they can chime in, but
yeah,
if they're looking to do that, then I mean, yeah. My big question here that I would want to flip over to you, John, is they clearly said we're going to explore options, including those that will better reach our players. At first I read that and I'm like, okay, so they're going to go back to the drawing board, but it's interesting watching the following week play out. And it just seems like the general consensus is it's not coming back. So what do you think is going to happen here?
It does kind of so I don't think the name can come back. Concord, I feel like the name has to go away, the branding, and they'd have to call it something else. And I feel like this wouldn't work as a hero PvP shooter. But if they really want to retool this thing and bring it back in some way, it sounds straight. I feel like you kind of look at Helldivers 2 and be like, okay, what's made that successful? It's PvE. Could we come up with a way to make this more player versus enemy oriented, or even player versus enemy versus player oriented, and sort of build that in? Because you can't change the entire game. Otherwise, you might as well just make a new game, and it would cost millions and millions of dollars, even over the course of a month, to retool this thing. So they have to do a small amount of stuff to this to try to flip it to make it make sense. And I still just don't know if it's worth bringing it back then. Like, to me, if you could, no budget, no time limit, you could reskin the whole thing. It's a bunch of PlayStation characters and a hero shooter. There you go. It'll probably have a better chance. That's not feasible, though, unless you're going to spend probably another $50 million on this thing, most likely. So it feels like this thing, even if they try to do it again, it would just be a waste of time. Honestly, you may want to look at Firewalk and decide, do we want them to try to make another game? Or do we want them to go do support with something else? And I mean, honestly, let's face it, probably lay off a significant number of people at that studio and then become a support department for Sony with shooters.
Yeah, from what I understand, it sounds like this was very much an SIE decision where basically nobody at Firewalk knew what was going to happen. And they still don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if that means like only senior leadership at Firewalk was maybe a part of that conversation, but clearly like SIE just like came in and made this call. So it's I don't know. I'm curious if you think it's actually going to come back, because it could just be lip service, but like they said, we'll explore options. But I'm sitting here going, like, exactly what you're saying. Like, what are you willing to do to bring it back? Because I think we're all in agreement. Free to play is just not going to work.
No.
So, are you going to fundamentally change what this game is? Maybe that has a chance, but like, that's just more financial risk. I mean, do you really just move on from this and then then the fate of Firewalk is kind of up in the air. Like, as you said, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? This is crazy. I kind of wish we knew what was going to play out already, but
it's a tough situation. And it still makes you wonder who at PlayStation thought it was a good idea, like this game, because I think this is one of those situations where I do scratch my head with people making these kind of decisions. Cause I feel like, I don't say everyone, but there are a lot of people, majority of people I bet would have looked at that game, even in development, and been like, I don't know if this is going to work. I think that would have crossed the mind, where it seems like Sony was pretty happy with the game. Like happy enough to buy Firewalk. So when you see that, you go, okay, maybe they don't have an eye for multiplayer stuff like that. Helldivers 2 worked out. It didn't seem like Sony was expecting it to work out to that degree, but it worked out. And then you hear that Fair Games is being received well internally. And after seeing Concord, I really don't believe it now. I had to be like, hold on. You said that about Concord, obviously, because you bought them. I don't really know what to think then about Fair Games now. So that's like kind of a prove it mode for me with that game. We'll see. But then all these other projects, was it a good idea to cancel The Last of Us Online? Because now I'm thinking, okay, you thought Concord was going to work, but The Last of Us Online wouldn't. I understand Naughty Dog was saying, well, this would consume our whole studio to keep this thing afloat. But it just starts making you question their judgment around multiplayer games until, of course, they get it right again if they do. Like, let's say Fair Games comes out, viral success, people are buying it, they love the game. Then it's like, okay, well, maybe they know what they're doing. And that was kind of like a weird situation where they really wanted a hero shooter and the market just wasn't accepting it. But if Fair Games comes out and that struggles, and Marathon comes out and that struggles, it's like, you know what? Maybe Sony is better off going either back to the well and picking out an established franchise. I know, Ryan, you're like, I don't know, like a SOCOM or something. Try that. Or just keep collecting 30% of all the microtransactions Fortnite wants to give you. I mean, really, like the amount of money that's generated from these games, 30% of a really big number is still a big number.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's so the Fair Games thing is interesting too, right? Because with that, and I guess more broadly speaking about all the live service things that they're doing, is that they're all unique genres. And this is basically what they were just talking about recently, is that there's a very big level of importance on being in all these different genres. So it's hard to, I think in a way, look at Concord and go, oh, geez, well, what about Fair Games? It's like, well, that's a heist PvE game. In theory, maybe that will turn out much better. I don't know. That might just be the optimism in me. But I think undeniably there's going to be new processes in place that prevent another Concord from happening, because that's the big question mark. How did this happen? I think at a certain point, the game's too far gone in terms of like, oh, shit, this thing's coming out. But it's like, how did it get there? How did it pass every single milestone build? How did it go through? Because the game surely had playtesting and focus groups. There must have been a feedback loop here that did actually tell them you're onto something. There has to be. I mean, didn't that actually happen with Redfall? Is that internally they had some like mock reviews and some you know what I mean? So it's like, and even that's not them saying like, oh, we thought the game would do 90. Didn't Phil say they ranked it at like 75 or something out of 100?
It was multiple points lower than what they thought it would be internally.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, is that what we're looking at here? Is that they thought maybe the game was going to just maybe middle with like a few thousand player count and it came in way under? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to explain away, obviously, but I think it's still important to evaluate every live service game on its own, and in particular the genre, because every game so far is definitely sort of filling in a different niche.
Well, Redfall technically had a higher concurrent player count by a significant factor compared to and the studio behind Redfall is gone. So
yeah. That's alarming. That's alarming.
Yeah, for Firewalk. I almost wonder if Firewalk just gets folded into PlayStation Studios or something at this rate. I don't know. It seems that is a very weird spot for them to be in now. And it's very awkward for Sony, because I just don't think there's any saving that Concord name. It's just, I think it's too tainted at this point, and either needs to be renamed completely or just scrapped and move on.
Well, the other thing too is that this whole debacle blew up so much to the point where if you do rename it, if you do bring it back, if you do rechange it, it has like this image is stuck with it. Like people know Firewalk now, they know Concord. Like however this thing comes back, and if it did come back, let's say, like that, it would like it'd be this demon chasing them now because it's gonna blow up on Twitter again and YouTube. The Firewalk studio, the studio that did Concord. I almost feel bad in a way where it's like, okay, you let them do another game, and let's say it takes them 5 years or something or longer, and then it's like, oh no, that's the Concord studio. You know what I mean? Like, that sucks.
That's kind of rough.
I can't help but sympathize with because these are talented people. This is still a technically sound game, and I've been talking to some of the players that like genuinely did like buy and they liked it. It's like there were a handful of people that enjoyed what was there. So it's tough. I feel like, I hate to say it, but maybe this is an outcome where like Firewalk is sort of maybe absorbed into SIE or something, or I don't know. They've got to be mindful of like how it looks, the optics here.
I mean, if they do a new game with them and they go away for a little while, then come back with something new, they could also just not say it's Firewalk making it, as weird as that sounds. And it's funny, but like Nintendo does that sometimes with their games. They will say the PR, you'll find out who made the game when it comes out and you look at the credits.
Yeah, but that's weird. That's weird how they do that.
But you see what happened with the like online right now with Bloober Team, for example. Remember everything they've gone through with Silent Hill 2, and now the game actually looks good, but the entire way they were just getting beaten down online constantly because of Bloober Team being involved. It's like if people didn't know it was Bloober Team and they were just seeing it over time, they're like, oh, cool. And then they see in the credits, oh, Bloober Team did this. Oh, like that. It sounds weird, but Sony probably could do something like that if they were concerned about the connection from Concord to Firewalk, just not immediately telling you it's Firewalk making it.
The problem is they can't do that because that would fundamentally completely change how they market their entire studios nowadays. When you boot up a game and it says PlayStation Studios, or when they do a trailer, I mean they're absolutely going for this sort of MCU Paramount WB intro with these trailers where it's like PlayStation Studio. You see that logo and then it's followed by the studio name. So I get what you're saying. I think that doesn't quite track with how they normally would.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine a PlayStation Studios logo and it's like, oh wait, so who the hell is making that?
That's true. It'd be intrigue in it. It'd be more interesting than Concord then. People want to check it out. You gotta do some weird stuff sometime. Desperate times.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's crazy stuff. So
yeah,
I guess
we'll see.
I guess
we'll see what happens with Concord.
Well, in other Dead Live service news, I'm not sure if you saw this. I feel like I was the only one that actually reported on this. Destruction All Stars was apparently broken on PS5 since May.
No one's noticed. No. Okay, good. That's what I figured. No one's noticed.
I did not know either. Somebody reached out to me and let me know that, like, I guess the game's been down since May or something, and it didn't have like a formal shutdown notice. Like, I guess if you try to,
that's amazing.
If you try, so what I heard was that if you tried to matchmake, you would get an error code. I checked in recently. I got an error code the second I booted the game up. Like when I got to the menu, it gave me an error code. Then I got past that and then I started matchmaking. And the matchmaking, like, it looked like it was working. Now, John, I'm not going to front. I was sitting for about 9 minutes trying to find people, and that wasn't really happening. So I don't know if it was because no players were online, or if the game was broken, or if the game was broken. I mean, obviously, Lucid Games is not supporting this game anymore. They were actually picked up by like a 10-cent subsidiary or something. So it's probably, if the game is even being like watched over right now, it's probably like 1 or 2 people at XDev or something. But I guess we'll just put it out there like, hey, that game should still be online. So maybe we should make sure it works, or at least properly sunset it, like put out a notice, like Concord got a PS blog post and Destruction All Stars didn't. What's going on here?
I guess just so that I get, to me, that's the thing with these games that aren't considered live service. You can just, I guess, leave a server up for it, and if you want to play it, they can play it. But man, that live service experience just needs constant attention and constant updates. People didn't even know this game didn't work, like, and that's just because it's not constantly being put in front of them, I guess. Or that's one of those things it can be there, and you can go try playing it whatever you want, I guess. And it's that arena shooter, that multiplayer that's just this one piece, and it doesn't have to keep going on forever. So at the same time, though, if no one plays it, the server will be up and you won't know until you try, apparently. So I don't know. That is kind of funny, though, that no one noticed that it just didn't work.
Yeah,
it's like PlayStation Stars.
I don't know. I saw that and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was down since May. Well, that's a while ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. That's 4 months ago.
Oh well. We should have brought this up earlier, but I guess we'll do it real quick in passing. I think we did just say this, but the PS5 Japan price increase. So the console went up in price there. That was effective on September 2nd. So, that and also like everything went up there. So the consoles, accessories, PlayStation Portal saw a pretty big price increase. Now this one, I'll admit, is probably more reflective of like the yen, because the yen is like super, super weak right now in Japan. Because I've actually got the adjusted for inflation numbers. So when PS5 came out in Japan, it was $462 USD. Not bad. Now they readjusted it to be $550. Digital edition was $414 USD back in 2020. Now they readjusted it to $504. So, like, price increases suck. I'll never say like hell yeah, awesome. But you know that one, I think we could probably, unfortunately, see what happened there, which sucks for Japan because it's already their home market where people don't even buy the damn thing, basically.
Right. Yeah. They're holding out for that portable.
Well, they'll be waiting.
Yeah,
just put
probably.
it that way. This I thought was pretty noteworthy for PlayStation history in a way, because the Metal Gear Solid collection, Volume 2 coming up, right? There's a little game in the MGS lineup that is kind of, well, people say it's stuck. So sounds like MGS4 might be moving sometime soon. So speaking with IGN, Konami's producer, Noriaki Akamura teased Volume 2, and when they were asked about MGS4, they said, we're definitely aware of the MGS4 situation, but unfortunately they can't say anything. But they did say Volume 1 contains MGS 1 through 3, so ... you can probably connect the dots. And there's also, like, this I didn't look into too much, a lot of stuff. It was like an interview that came out just like today, basically, or something.
It was today, yeah.
Yeah, and they were talking about the contents of what Volume 2 is going to have, which they're still sussing that out, I guess. I don't know. I mean, clearly 4 is in there, right? And
it has to. If you're already talking about it, like, what else do you put in Volume 2 that's the big that you put on the front cover? I mean, it's Metal Gear Solid 4. Like, that's what you have to do at this point. You know what would be really interesting, though, because I tried to figure out how you fill out the rest of it. They have Volume 1, which honestly, if you've never played the Metal Gear game, Metal Gear Solid specifically, it's a good pickup. By the way, it was like $20 on Amazon the other day.
I bought it. I don't have it yet.
Okay, good option though for people who want to revisit it. I know there's like some issues they had to work through and stuff, but I think the idea of this overall value in that package is very good, right? Metal Gear Solid 4, I think, has to be in. But what about the idea of adding an online component to it and reviving Metal Gear Online just as a part of that volume? And it's like, look, you guys can go online and play it. We're not going to do any major updates, but you can go online and play it.
MGO2?
That would be cool. That would be cool. That'd be interesting.
Very interesting, because I just reached out to that community and played with them for a bit for PS3 Online in 2024, because they restored MGO2. MGO2 is like, not only is it playable on PlayStation 3 and our PCS3, but it's like better.
Yeah.
They added like they restored some of the maps and added new content, new emblems. They did a lot of crazy stuff with it. So ironically, if Konami even humored that idea of bringing it back, they'd probably bring it back, and it wouldn't even be nearly as good as what the community did with it.
But it'd be like an official release, and I'm sure people in that community would buy it and be like, "Oh, cool! This is really neat. Like to have this back." And I assume they would throw like the portable ones in there from the PSP,
Acid.
right? Acid would be good. I'm thinking like Peace Walker and stuff too. They could load it up with those, and maybe you tack on Metal Gear Solid 5 just to have it there and just complete the collection that way. I mean, at that point, you'd have a pretty good, I think, pretty good collection at that point.
I mean, definitely like the elephant though is 4, because that.
Oh yeah,
that would be the. That'd be a huge deal. You can already see the headlines. The game stuck on PS3. Finally available. It goes multi-plat as well. You know, so that'll be a pretty big deal when that finally happens. But
yep, get it on PC, Xbox. It'd probably, based on the timeline, it'd probably be on Nintendo's next system. I don't think we see Volume 2 until like maybe next year, maybe the year after or something. But it is because we still have Delta coming up, and it seems like Delta, unless it's coming out in the next month, isn't until next year. So they have a nice lineup here, I think, for Metal Gear. I don't know if they'll ever be able to approach Metal Gear Solid 6 necessarily, because they don't have Kojima with them, but it's still nice to be able to revisit the classics. And Delta, we assume that first Metal Gear Solid is up next for a remake. So they have I think they have his cadence here. Get the Volume, get Delta, Volume, remake again. We'll see.
Well said. And we can't overlook that this is the PlayStation 3's big 2008 exclusive. Let's not overlook that. This was a big deal at the time.
It was big. It was really big. They had the PS3 console and everything. I remember going into GameStop and seeing that game. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, because in the beginning, it didn't look like a Metal Gear Solid game in the beginning, because like Snake's covered in like the cloak kind of, and it looks like he's just in like a war zone in Afghanistan, just running around. It's like, what is this? And then it's old Snake, and you're like, whoa, this is Metal Gear Solid. So,
whoa, look at him. He's smoking.
He's got like the camo thing. Yeah. He's got the camo thing that like blends in depending on where he is, the chameleon thing. That was cool. Come on, that was fun. Riding's a cyborg for some reason. It's like, what?
that next gen smoking. It was insane.
Yeah, that was a big deal. You put that on and be like, this is going to take 10 minutes. But I don't care. Look how good that looks. It's like, you get like real close to the TV and be like, look at this. There's smoke coming out of the cigarette. They patched it though, didn't they? So it just has one install now.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't fired it up in a long time.
Yeah, I think they patched it later on so that you just install once. Because you remember before you would go through and at a certain point it was basically the change the disk moment where it's like you have to now install again. They got rid of that, and it's like I think the initial install is like 20 minutes or something. They don't have any more the rest of the way through.
Okay. Yeah, that was a big deal. It'll be an even bigger deal when it does leave too. So,
what if they have 4K and like, and that'd be sick.
Hey, crazy
8K,
an 8K MGS4.
Oh, see, now we're talking.
I don't know if I'm ready for 8K smoking. I'll be honest. All right, this guy's probably charged up.
You charging your AirBud? What's happening? Your AirPods like halfway through?
They die in like 2 hours, son. And this
are you getting the new Are you getting the new AirPods? Are you getting the new ones?
Maybe. I probably should.
They have USB-C on them apparently.
I should be using my Pulse Explorer. Pulse Explorer has some really good battery life.
What's the battery life on that?
It's 5-6 hours, I think.
That's pretty good. They're pretty small too, right?
I think. I don't know. I reviewed them too, and I already can't remember the battery life.
No.
It's
got that grip on you.
It's long. You know what's funny? I use the Pulse Explorer all the time, not on my PlayStation. I use them for I just use them for my phone. Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Because the audio quality is like really good. I actually mowed the lawn today and just had the Explorers on the whole time.
Noise cancellation, like it blocks out the mower noise and everything. It's good enough.
It does a reasonable. I don't think the Explorer has noise cancellation. It's the Elite
I know I have these AirPods and I have the AirPod Pros as well, and they have noise cancellation. It's very weird when you put them on. it does this thing where you can kind of hear it first, and it goes, whoop, and it's just, you don't hear anything anymore. It just cancels everything. It's this very weird sound. It's almost like you lose hearing kind of if you don't have anything on.
Yeah, it's trippy. How about this one? This is kind of a weird thing that's been playing out. It's like a back and forth thing with this Black Myth Wukong debacle, right? The game, if it's exclusive or not, and if Sony signed the game on. Have you been keeping up with this?
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of back and forth on it.
A lot of back and forth. A very brief recap would be, we had, Game Science come out, say we're optimizing the Series SX version. Oh, we did talk about that before on Click R3. We had that happen. Microsoft sent a statement to Forbes saying, we don't want to comment on deals made by our partners, which suggested that there was a deal. But it's like, why is Sony not treating it like this? Then they sent out the same statement again. Then they sent the same statement out like a third time, where they said, as we've said before, we're excited for the launch of the game, blah, blah, blah. We prefer not to comment on the deals made by our partners with other platform holders, but we can confirm that the delay is not due to Xbox platform limitations that have been raised to us. Yet again, suggesting that some kind of deal was made. But, you've got people back and forth saying there is a deal, there's not a deal. Eurogamer said they heard that there was one. Jeff Grubb said that there wasn't one. It's a very, very weird thing. I'm still inclined to say there's not one because Sony is not treating it like one whatsoever.
Moreover, no advertising or marketing, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and here's the caveat, right? Because there's definitely a lot of different agreements. These can look very different. They run the gamut in terms of the stipulations and what comes with it. Not every game is going to get big, splashy PlayStation marketing, but that's almost always, as far as I understand it, typically reserved for smaller titles. Like if you're part of the hero projects in China or India, like, yeah, you're signing an agreement that says you're not going to ship on Xbox for however long it is, but you're not going to get this huge blow. It's kind of expected that you're not going to ship on the other guy. Mm-hmm. Black Myth Wukong is not a small game. I mean, this game is huge. It blew up. I mean, this would certainly be the kind of game, whereas Sony tends to do, and really all three of them do. The big three never hide these. They always put out there point blank, it's exclusive. We have marketing rights. Oftentimes they'll outline exactly how long it's exclusive with a little asterisk on the trailer letting you know it's only available on this machine for so-and-so amount of time. So the PR statements from Microsoft are very strange. I can't see how this is not like just what Game Science said it is, though.
The people who are reporting on this, like Paul Tassi, for example, IGN apparently corroborates it. They seem very confident that there was something between Game Science and Sony. But You're right. Everything from the outside looks weird to where it's not normal. Like you're saying, Sony would be involved in some way with PlayStation being next to Black Myth Wukong, or as you say, have some kind of disclaimer at the bottom. It's here for 6 months or something like that, right? It'll at least tell you in the fine print, but it's like none of that's happening. So I've seen some ideas thrown around as, okay, this is a different kind of situation than normally would happen, to where maybe Sony provided technical help and funding in that way in order to get the game to the PS5 in time. And that's why it's not on Xbox right now, because Microsoft didn't, which we've seen some weird situations recently where Microsoft wasn't even sending emails back and apparently communicating with developers for games.
And Natrio.
It's like, okay, so that part is believable that maybe Sony became more involved with development as opposed to Microsoft, and that helped get Black Myth Wukong out on the PS5. Because it's possible that if not, maybe Black Myth Wukong was just a PC game at launch and then it would come to consoles later kind of thing. But maybe Sony, because the game's still kind of rough on PS5. It just is. And it seems kind of like it was, I don't say coming in hot, but if they had kept it for another 6 months, I probably just would have been much better. But that's also a possibility, as opposed to Sony gave them a bunch of money to just keep it on the PS5. That's kind of what's implied with the marketing deal, quote unquote, that has shown no marketing for PlayStation. So is it a marketing deal? I don't know, but I feel like something may have happened between Sony and Game Science, but maybe not in the traditional sense of here's money, we're going to have this game for 6 months and tell everyone about it.
Yeah, it's definitely in their interest to and they do this. They'll give some studios some additional resources or assign an engineer to the game, and maybe they'll reach out and, get into the nitty gritty of like, how can we get the best out of this game, or how do we get it out the door faster? So I mean, that's the most plausible theory. I'm wondering where did the communication slip here on, oh, that's an exclusivity agreement, which is very strange. Another very big giveaway is that a lot of the language with a proper exclusivity agreement will almost always entail that you're not allowed to specifically name other consoles as well. It's very particular, like legalese in a way, but it's like Game Science would not be allowed to put an FAQ on their site that says, what about the Xbox Series? They would have to say other consoles.
Right.
So everything in plain view says like it's not an agreement, but maybe Sony was just the ones that were willing to step forward and get this thing out the door. But it's still puzzling, I think, that you've got like 3 or 4 different places saying, well, we've heard this. And it's like, well, I don't know. It's like, how? And it's like, oh, only one source. Did you try and corroborate this with another source, or I don't know. It's a weird one for sure.
Yeah. It's hard to tell unless people just start saying who their source is, explain kind of the way that they got to the determination, but you can't really start outing your sources, obviously, if you're doing like journalism. So that's kind of where the standoff is, I should say, standstill right now for a lot of the discourse around this. So it should go to Xbox eventually. That's at least what they've been saying.
Yeah, this is true. And then Sony's never going to here's the other thing too. They're never going to like come out and say anything because this is such a weird circumstance. They have to send out a statement saying, no, we're not partnering with this game. It's weird. How about this story? Sony says they need more original IP. So this was both the chairman and CEO of the Sony Group, Kenichiro Yoshida, also Hiroki Totoki, the president, COO, and CFO. They were talking with the Financial Times. Got some interesting quotes here. Totoki said, and I quote here, "Whether it's for games, films, or anime, we don't have that much IP that we fostered from the beginning. We're lacking the early phase of IP, and that's an issue for us." Now, the context with that is that Sony has historically been better at reaching a global audience for content that was already popular in Japan. And moreover, the article was touching on how Sony is still in this position where for things like TV and film in particular, they still make this content and then sell it to providers instead of Sony, say, making their own service. So Yoshida also said, by putting our efforts into content creation, which the company wants to double down on doing, that means they can partner with more people on the distribution side to then sell that stuff to the big tech players. So I think a lot of the article, I think, primarily leans into TV and film. Now, Totoki does say games. For me, this reads as Totoki's background is he's the CFO. He's been a financial guy all his life. Like, I don't think you'd have Kaz Hirai saying this, or a Jim Ryan, or you know what I mean? I almost feel like it's one of those things where he's just a numbers guy and he's maybe number crunching the top like 10 franchises on PlayStation that are the big key revenue drivers. And he's not privy to like the fucking game they just put out that has 100 goddamn like properties in it. Like we all know they have a ton of original IP that they fostered. Yeah. So this to me read as like maybe just a very misconstrued thing in a way, but I don't know what you thought about this thing.
Yeah, I think everybody looked at that and said, what are you talking about? You don't have a lot of IP that you could pull from. You have plenty. Like there's so many they've kind of forgotten about now. Like I still believe you could take Infamous and make a series out of it if you wanted to. Like you make an Amazon series, 10 episodes for the first season. I think that's something that would lean into it very nicely and it would work well. And that's just kind of pulling an IP out of the hat, just like that, right? So they have a lot they could go back to. And it did seem like in this talk, he was really referring almost 80% with TV video, because he kept talking about Crunchyroll and he kept talking about Netflix and Amazon, and he really did not mention Microsoft or Nintendo at all. Like in his mind, it's like what reaches the most people oh wow, look what happened with Fallout. Okay, we need original IP that can do that. That kind of is more the overall entertainment IPs that range between all of this: games, TV, and more mainstream appeal, I guess, in that sense. But it was hard because we're just trying to figure out what exactly he meant when you're right. He's just a numbers guy, and maybe he's not like, oh, maybe we could do something with Atreus with a spin-off God of War thing. He's not thinking any of that. He's like, he's looking at the monies and moving the counters around and stuff. And it seemed a bit weird. It seemed a bit detached, even a little bit there.
It's one of those things where like, it's a good headline. And I think a lot of people probably saw the headline and that's where it stopped. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, if you read into it, I think it's just kind of, this one sounded a little bit strange.
They want that hit. They want that Fallout hit, something like that. Like Cyberpunk was pretty big when they did their animated series. And they did mention that they tend to sell off, or if they have something, they'll push it off to another company to make it for them. Like like they have the production now to do a lot of this stuff. And that's kind of what it seemed like he was trying to talk about. Even just animation, like he's talking about anime with Crunchyroll. It's like, yeah, we can do that now. We'd have to ramp up about 30%. It's like, he's going into all those numbers. And it's like, okay, now we're not even talking about games anymore. So I think he's just kind of entertainment in general across Sony. So I saw people who were like, oh, look at all this stuff. Yeah, he's thinking of stuff that's not as much of an investment, we'll say, as games that are $200 to $300 million. He's like, oh, how can we make an anime for $15 million and get a stupid amount of money back on that return? That's kind of what time he was on there.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say Totoki did not play Astro Bot.
If he played it though, Ryan, would he even know half the IPs that his company owns as he's playing it? I mean, that's a real question.
He would play it, and like, because there's third party IP in there too. He would play it and then like call somebody and be like, "Do we own this?
Gosh,
what about this bot? Do we own this? Oh, we do. When did we make this? 96, you say? What the hell? Why aren't we doing anything with it?"
He would probably, and then he'd be saying that he's like, "Do we own Resident Evil? I don't know." And then he'd go over and he'd hit like a chest and unlock the new bot and be like, "Oh, Vib Ribbon, this is awesome! I remember when that came out back on the PS1. Oh, I had this complete." It's like, wait, what? What are you talking about? He'd remember some obscure thing and like go on and on and on about the history all of a sudden.
Yeah. I think Toto, he's like, as far as I know, he's a very financial numbers guy. So I don't think he really understands what IP they even fucking own for video games.
They should go back and look at some of their IPs though, and try to bring them to the film side or TV series and stuff. I think there's a lot of potential there with some of their stuff.
Oh, from what we heard, they're accepting pitches from like anybody for anything. Like it's just
Gravity Rush. That's going to be a thing. That's interesting. Yeah. So
that's hype. Let's get the Vib
more
ribbon,
of that
Vib Ribbon movie going.
Vib Ribbon. Hey, that'd be interesting.
You know what? I want a movie for Trash Panic, the PS3 PSN game from Japan Studio where you have to cram trash into a trash can.
That's the most random suggestion I think I've ever heard on a podcast.
Dude, think about the Trash Panic cinematic universe. Let's get it.
I feel like there's a director out there that would just want to take that challenge to prove they can make a movie out of that, or just a series. That's what I feel like half the time. Like we got the Emoji movie. Someone was like, "I can do that. Watch," and someone's like, "I bet you can't." And then that's the pitch. All right, watch this.
That would definitely be the A20. Like A24 will step in and somebody will do an avant-garde trash movie. Oh, John, you have some questions for us, yes?
Yes, we did have some questions from the Patreon. What I'll do now going forward is like a week or so in advance, I'll post up a message over there on the network, and I'll just ask people if they have any questions that they want to feed in for us to check out on the podcast. I'll leave that up until we record, and then I'll remove it, and then we'll put a new one up, and the cycle will continue. But you can ask us about whatever PlayStation related and even stuff happening at that time. And I have a few questions here, which I'll read the names as we go as well. Let's see. We have Justin, who wrote in and asked, will we see Naughty Dog's next project by the end of the year, or is 2025 more likely?
Good question. I think best case scenario would be a teaser by the end of this year. If it were to be by the end of this year, if it's not the end of this year, then you would be probably looking at maybe a more substantial reveal, and that would be in 2025. Like they can get away with like a very like sort of a Last of Us Part 2 teaser, like where it doesn't show you like much of anything,
right?
But like the excitement is Naughty Dog logo, and you would hope that it's a clear indication of like, oh, this is the new IP, because I think we pretty much know for certain that the next game is going to be the new IP. So it depends on how far along they are and if they're willing to show something, even though it's maybe further out than we would like it to be.
People do complain about seeing stuff in advance by like a significant amount, even 2 years. I think at this point, people are just ready to see whatever Naughty Dog's new IP is, even if it's not ready for 2 years. I feel like the vast majority would just kind of have that sigh of relief after everything has happened for Naughty Dog in the first 4 years of the PS5, which just hasn't really gone their way. So I think that would just be a good idea just for even the image of the studio right now, because it does feel like it's been a while for them to have like that big moment. It's been a bit, and they're that top tier studio with Sony that I'd like to see them have something people can get excited about again, rather than hear about canceled projects that, well, couldn't have been worse than Concord. So yeah.
That is the one actual only valid example of a live service game that truly did impede on single player progress.
Yeah,
everything else was outside studios, second party developer setups. That one truly was the one that stung, because that was hundreds of people and a lot of work out the window.
Medallion says Astro Bot and Zelda in the same month. Finally, 2025 begins. Debating which one will be the personal game of the year, or if it's not, the better of the two releases overall. We don't have Zelda yet. That's the thing. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what to expect from that game necessarily in terms of like reviews or anything. I do think Astro Bot will still end up being the higher rated game. It's been very difficult for Zelda, I feel like, to end up with like a 95 or something to beat Astro there. But I wouldn't be shocked if at the end of the year it was in the discussion, Zelda for game of the year. But we need to see that. We need to see it come out. At least for me right now, Zelda's an unknown. Astro Bot's awesome. So at this very moment, I would recommend Astro Bot.
Yeah, I would personally refrain from making those sorts of or speculate too much on exactly how well Zelda's going to end up doing. Ideally, I'd like it to be great, but hitting like 94 plus on Metacritic's like a really tough thing to do. So
yep. I'm a big top-down Zelda fan, so this is right up my alley. It's very creative. I will be checking it out, but we'll see. We'll see. We're not too far off though. It's 26th. Nintendo does this Thursday release thing now, so we are 2 weeks out.
Yep, it's coming up fast. Yeah. This
whole year came up fast. Sheesh, already halfway through September almost. Let's see. We have Varang, who says, does Mystic Ryan still trophy hunt, and what made John get into slight trophy hunting as of lately?
Answer that, John. What's going on with you?
I'll admit, talking with Ryan more and him throwing the trophy stuff around, I've been checking that trophy menu a bit more when I play through a game now. I will say that. And there have been times where I look at it and I go, you know what? I will get this platinum. I'll do it for Ryan. I'll get it. And except for one, there was one platinum that I will never get, and I will just always leave it there as a reminder that I don't actually care that much.
Why though? Just do it. Like, why would you leave one? It's just
Field Chronicle.
I would argue it's almost inhumane. Like you're committing a crime. You might be breaking the Geneva Convention.
I posted that up, and there were a lot of people who were like that. You know that meme of the guy at the desk who's like tensing every muscle in his body with veins popping out of his face. It's like that, where it's like, please just finish the platinum, please. It's like I need.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I need to grind to level 50 and I'm like level 47 or something.
Who does that? I mean, it's chaotic behavior. It makes me question why I'm talking to you right now.
Maybe I'll go back and get that platinum one day and just never tell anyone. And you'll just always think that I'm although I guess you could technically check. So
I could look. Yeah.
You could just go look.
Varang, my answer is I always enjoy going for trophies. It's just a free time thing. I don't even like hide this. Like oftentimes when I do platinum a game, like you see it because like I have to monetize it usually. That's why like 30 platinums is a thing. Or you're going to see an Astro Bot playthrough soon because I was going to make sure I found time to play that game. So like I filmed my playthrough and I filmed a playthrough for Returnal. So it's like I definitely still love doing it. I can't do it nearly as often as I used to. Like I used to go super hard during the PS3 days, but that was also when I was younger and, didn't have this big job commitment. And so you grow up and things get in the way.
If you ever see the video pop up that says I finally platinum this game, you know which one it is. It's be 10 minutes of me talking over Diofield Chronicle footage as I get there.
You should do it. I'm telling you, John, it works.
I finally platinum this game. Or maybe I'll stop at level 49 and like 90% HP or experience. Just leave it and never come back. Let's see. We have Matendu says, when do you personally feel classic CODs, Call of Duties, will be released on Game Pass? And could you see them being re-released on PS5 due to this? So I'm thinking like Call of Duty Classic is an example of one game that would have to be re-released, right? Call of Duty 2, I believe, is another one.
Yeah, how many are missing? Call of Duty 3 would need a proper port on PlayStation 4 and 5. I know
yes.
That because 3 is a backwards compatible game, right?
World at War, because I'm thinking of like I just gotta think of the PS3 Call of Duties, right?
Yeah,
that's it.
Literally every PS3 Call of Duty, basically. Yeah, but if we're talking about the ones that are not on not on 360 or it's Call of Duty Classic came out on Xbox Live Arcade and PSN. So is that backwards compatible?
I don't know. That's good. I think it is. Wait, is it?
That
might be one that was delisted and then it wasn't downloadable.
Oh, is it delisted?
Because I remember I had to mod my Xbox 360 to get that game back.
Oh, did it have like war footage in it or something and it wasn't able to get relicensed?
So I had to reset glitch hack my Xbox 360 to get it. And that was the whole thing. But okay, so if I go back, Call of Duty 2 was not on the PS3. Right, that was just 360 game only at the time, so that could be a re-release. Call of Duty 3 game. Yes. Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Then we go back to then we had like Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare 3, and then we got Ghosts.
At a certain point, do you consider those classics though?
I mean, so we're going to get in this conversation next year, by the way. All right. Because next year, people keep telling me this 360 is not retro. Next year, it is 20 years old. I'm sorry. The 360 is retro. So I look at a lot of these 360 only games as kind of there. It's like, that was on like pretty old hardware then, technically speaking. Modern Warfare 2 was 2009. So it's 15 years old next year. That feels old. This is me. But then kind of classic. I don't know. Could you do it? You could do an entire trilogy or section on the PlayStation and port them over. It seems like a lot of work though. Right now they have backwards compatibility on the Xbox, so it's easier for that to happen. But when they did do backwards compatibility with Modern Warfare 2, or was it Black Ops? I think it was Modern Warfare 2. It was one of them, one of the more popular ones. It did jump into the top 10 for the MPD. So just that alone was enough to do it. So there's still a crowd there. They're still interested. PlayStation's a big platform for Call of Duty, so there's probably some money to make.
I will say for the more PlayStation answer here, like that's the issue is they have to port like all the PlayStation 3 ones.
Yes.
So I'm actually not sure if they'd really be willing to do that because you're kind of going out of your way just for like in particular the competitor machine. And obviously they're they're reciprocating nowadays by doing modern releases on PlayStation, but to sort of maybe go even further out of the way to do what would be considered more of a, I think in my view, probably more of a lower volume, sort of initiative. These games would do okay again if they were re-released, but is that really worth it now? I'm not so sure. Maybe they would reciprocate by like allowing Call of Duty to, like the PS2 ones, to go through Sony's program for classics.
Yeah, interesting. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Like Big Red 1 and Finest Hour, and I think that was on. Is that on there? Hold on.
Finest Hour for PS2?
Yeah. Because I remember I played that on the GameCube back in the day. Because
technically, isn't Call of Duty? There's like no actual Call of Duty 2 on PS2. They were like they were always separate like stories or something with Finest Hour and Big Red 1.
Finest Hour was on there, and Big Red 1 was on there as well. Yeah, I just want to make sure I wasn't off on any of that. Yeah.
But
I mean, that's not a bad idea.
But am I correct in saying, wasn't Call of Duty 2 never actually on PS2? Like those are separate games, like separate stories.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, either way,
Call of Duty 2 was a big 360 launch title, and they just left it there. That's just what it was. So.
Okay, so yeah, that's a game's not even on PlayStation. There's no PlayStation version of that game, so.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Basically, they'd have to port all this stuff, which I'm not sure they would be willing to do.
I like the idea of the PS2 classic stuff, though. Sony probably has to pay out some money for that, but I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And I think those are the questions. So shout out to everyone over there leaving some questions. Again, check it out. And it'll pop up, but about a week or so before the podcast, I will drop it there and we will check out some of the questions here on the show.
Yes. Questions. I love questions. You know what else I love too?
What's that?
PSX gonna give it to you.
Oh, okay, good. Let's see what we got. By the way, I do want to tell you this about the last one you did. It was the Core episode, right? Core?
Yeah. No, that was like, wasn't that like the first episode?
The magazine, digital magazine.
That wasn't last episode, was it?
Maybe it was the one before that. It's funny. It came up again, right? So I'm doing right now. I'm working on a video that I have a cheap emulation box. Okay. And I'm trying to get this thing to $100 or less that you could get this emulation box, and it would play hopefully PlayStation 3 games. That's the idea. Emulate them. And I found a certain program that helps me get PS3 games, we'll say. Helps me find them. Helps me find Vita games. Also, it's like Internet Archive, like people have backed all the stuff up. Guess what else they backed up? All the Core episodes. It's
Did
all
you grab
there.
them?
No, I looked at it though. I'm like, that's okay. That's kind of fun because you have to you view them on your PS3 or through an emulator. It seems
they are applications, like they are packages that you install. So yes, that would.
I thought it was hilarious. I was like, we just talked. All of them are there. They're all there.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll download a few. That's
the beauty of PSX Gonna Give It To You, where we look at some kind of big moment in PlayStation history, maybe a key product, an announcement, maybe a meme that popped up. It's just something to reminisce about. And John, I don't think there's any better episode to talk about this. It is very well known, but how can we not talk about $599 US?
This is a good episode. This is a good one. I made a meme about it today.
There's no better episode. Now, like I think everybody knows, but what's really eye-opening, right? Even with PS5 Pro's price tag, is that I'll double check this, but accounting for inflation, that console was still batshit insane expensive.
Mm-hmm. I think right now it's just over 900, right? With inflation, if you look at it for like this year versus 2006.
It's like it truly cannot be understated how crazy that price tag was in 2006, because that was you got to bear in mind they're coming off the PlayStation 2. Everybody and their goddamn grandmother had a PlayStation 2. It was the console, so it's like surely PS3 is going to be tight as hell. And look, I mean, some can argue like, oh, it's a cheap Blu-ray player and all, but it's like no matter what, at a certain point, something's just too goddamn expensive. $600 in 2006, and the console reveal just was bad. like really bad.
It was great. It was so funny. Now looking back on it, it's hilarious because it has all the memes and he dropped the PSP before he told us about the PS3 price. It was crazy. He's like, he's on camera, hot mic. Whoops. What was that noise? Nothing. It was just the nothing.
This is like I'll tell you, John. There's a lot of things I don't like about this current console cycle. The one thing I'm still not fully behind is when people say arrogant Sony is back. Maybe in a certain way, but like I think we're looking at two different. There's a Sony back then they were built different and not in a good way. I mean, the thing I'll always argue is like PlayStation 5 in many ways is still like good. Like it's still, I mean, when the console came out in 2020, well, I'd say it was good. Dude, this thing sucked. This thing sucked in 2006 and they wanted $600 for it.
I think we're beyond the point of these consoles. Like all the consoles, pretty much Sony's with PS5, Microsoft, Xbox Series, they're just good consoles. Like the hardware is good, the software is good, like OS and everything. All that's fine. You're right. Back then, you got this shiny new system, and that thing was slow as dirt.
John,
it took forever.
I love the play. It's my favorite goddamn machine. I love the PlayStation 3, but I have the cojones to sit here and tell you the thing it sucked ass, man. $600.
Spinning symbols all the time that would be there waiting for things to load.
Here's the thing, right? And this what's so great about like competition back then is that the 360 was just that thing kicked ass. And now look, Red Ring of Death is obviously a sore spot we can't ignore, but it's like your competition came out a year earlier, right? It was cheaper. Xbox Live was a much more robust platform. Online connectivity was much more reliable at the time on that platform. It was much more fleshed out. There were way more features, and obviously they had the year head start. So third parties were all targeting 360, and so it just the optics were as bad as it got. It was truly the worst low point in PlayStation history. And by the time Sony does show up to finally show the successor to PlayStation 2, and they asked for $600. Now, look, there was a $500 model, which ironically, like, didn't even sell all that well. Like, people were typically buying the $600 one, so they phased out the $500 one, which is kind of weird.
That was gone pretty quick.
Yeah, I think it truly cannot be understated how expensive PlayStation 3 was. Where we had a quote from Ken Kutaragi, the father of PlayStation, about how incredible they wanted to make this thing, that it was the centerpiece of your living room, and that, you want to get two jobs to be able to afford it. It was something along those lines. And it was also he even gave out some stranger quotes too, which was like, oh, it's not a game machine. Like this is the second coming of Jesus. Like this thing's the shit,
This is so Kutaragi said, for consumers who think to themselves, I will work more hours to buy one.
Mm-hmm.
Basically the idea of we want people to feel that they want it irrespective of anything else, as in you will get a second job if you need to get this thing.
I love it. Irrespective of anything else. Like, if I just skip the next 5 dinners and I save that money.
You know what the most disgusting part about that release was, Ryan? They packaged in the worst PlayStation controller.
Whoa. Are you just going off the 6-axis? Because it's
the 6-axis controller.
Because it doesn't have rumble, right?
It's the worst controller.
I mean, it's bad because it doesn't have rumble, but the shell is still the same from the last two.
When you pick one up, it feels disgusting. They should be ashamed of themselves.
It doesn't feel disgusting. It feels like a ping pong ball.
It feels like nothing.
It feels like
I refurbished one completely. Yeah, I refurbished one completely because I was like, maybe I was off on this back then. And I put it all back together after spending about 3 hours refurbishing, cleaning it. It looks like brand new. And I picked it up and I'm like, nah, this thing's still terrible. It's not like the weight, yes, but also I don't really like the triggers that much. I'll be real. R2, L2, they're sloped away from you.
Well, that never changed. That was always like that.
Yeah, not great.
I mean, I think the more telling thing is, and it's crazy that this was true for the entire cycle, but like no HDMI. This was an HD console. Like this was like the one up, like PS3 is still at the time, like, because God, this is taking me so far back. Like You know how like on Twitter nowadays there's like list wars and all that obvious
Mhm.
fanboy bullshit. Like, look, that shit was alive and well in 2006 on like GAF and shit, where people would like make these like posters showing like, yeah, PS3 is expensive, but look, you get the Wi-Fi thing, or you get Wi-Fi included, so you don't have to buy that like you could on 360, or the or Blu-ray, obviously, or the extra USB ports, or the HDMI in the back. So people would sort of like wordsmith their way around
Right.
justifying this.
You're putting a lot of stuff in the shopping cart to get to that price.
Right. So I remember this very well. But the console would not have an HDMI cord, which, and I'm sure you remember this too. Like you go to like
TV
Best
ports,
Buy
yeah.
and they sell like a $50 gold plated HDMI cable, and you're sitting here and it's like 4 feet, and you're like, it doesn't even reach the entertainment center. Like it's just a weird time, man.
It was that weird in between time where if somebody had an HDMI enabled TV, that was like the cool house on the block. You're like,
Yeah.
You go there. They got the 32-inch Samsung. I'm gonna check that out. So, oh wow, okay. It was funny because I remember when those first started coming around, and it was right around that time because the 360 had come out. It had component cables, but it played backwards compatible games, so you could play like Halo 2. And I remember at that time one of my friends got a Samsung TV. It was like a 30-inch TV. It was like a widescreen one, I think it did 720p or 1080i. Those were the resolutions we had then. We didn't have 1080p across the board, right? 1080i. But we popped in Halo 2 and it came up, and the connection bars, we never do this, it always looks like a solid green or a solid yellow or solid red. We turned it on and it was actually bars. We're like, oh my gosh, we can see the bars on the connection, like the connection thing. It's incredible to us. So it is so funny to think about that. But yeah, HDMI TVs were still kind of rare. So to get the system that had HDMI natively, that did feel super high end. You're right.
Yeah.
It was something we were like, whoa, this is next gen. But at the same time, it had that price point where it was so hard to get one, or like to justify to even your parents, like, this is the Christmas gift. Like, what else is on your list? And they just keep going looking for something else. But you're right. It was slow. And the third party games did not come out great most times. No. It wasn't. No. So it was a very strange couple of years. It took Sony a while to try to turn that thing around, and a lot of it came down to them slashing the price into oblivion, and then releasing a really good system with this. I think the Slim system is awesome.
It's awesome when you think about like how they got like thermals down and stuff and made it a lot more reliable, and the form factor is obviously good, but like we can't ignore the sort of elephant here, which is they killed a bunch of the baby elephants. They got rid of PS2's Emotion Engine. They got rid of the RSX. Not to say this is a big deal, but they took off USB ports, and they got rid of the card readers, and they got rid of the Chrome on it, and so they made some sort of like very short term like aggressive price down, demand triggers to get the thing down to like 500 immediately with initially the 80 gig, then it went down to the 40 gig, then the Slim showed up and kind of saved everything in 2009.
Yep, and they're off to the races, attempting to break even the whole way.
and it's always really a funny thing when sometimes they'll use this graph during the business segment briefings where it shows their like revenue and their like profit through every PlayStation generation. And PS1, it's like, there's like, and it's like every year. PS1, bunch of bars, right? PS2, a lot of big bars, really successful console. PS3, underneath
all red bars.
All red bars underneath, multiple years. And then there's like 1 or 2 years, right, where they like broke a profit, like kind of like, I think it was like 2011, 2012. But this was also when they're like now ramping up PlayStation 4. So it's like they made a little bit of profit 1 or 2 years, and then it went back down again. And then PS4 came out, and then the bars went way high because of like, PSN blowing up, obviously, and things like that. But like, I think people truly do not remember. Yes, Sony is doing things that are arrogant, but this is not the same from what it's not even, I would argue, not even close. It was a bad console for that price tag.
The original Sticker Shock. That was it right there, $5.99, which is very ironic because Sony really made a name for themselves by saying $2.99, a much lower price. With the Sega Saturn on the other side. Here they went the complete opposite direction. They said $5.99. Microsoft was like, no, you can pick one up for $2.99, no big deal, or $3.99. So it was an interesting time for Sony, but that was an incredible moment on stage, and it does kind of make me miss those old days at E3 or wherever where they would be live and things like that would happen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, PS3 is like the gold mine of memes. That's where that so many, all from 2006, the giant enemy crab and Ridge Racer. It's all from 2006, which I don't want to undermine. Obviously, over time, we all know the PS3 story. It got way better, but when it came out, that Sticker Shock was rough, really rough. So
yeah.
I thought that was timely to discuss on the eve of PS5 Pro's $700 price tag.
Gosh. I still can't believe I think $700, by the way. That's still crazy.
It's a lot of money. All right. That's all I got for you.
Hey, we almost went 3 hours. Is that a new record? I feel like it's a new record.
Easily a new record, yeah.
Well, I mean, it was a busy week. PS5 Pro, Concord, Astro Bot, a lot happening. And you know what's really cool is the next time we come together, there will, at the bare minimum, TGS would have happened, and most likely a State of Play.
Yes, hopefully. So we'll have even more to discuss.
We'll have another busy podcast. So that's exciting stuff. And you know what? A lot of people out there have been supporting the show, showing up, and leaving nice comments and hanging out with us. So I do appreciate it. The viewership actually on the shows we put them on YouTube and then on the podcast have just been going up and up and up. And people have been saying they're really enjoying the show. So we appreciate you guys stopping by, hanging out with us. And that's episode 7. So we will be back in a couple of weeks to do it all over again. And hopefully this time we have some games to talk about. New ones, not $700 hardware, but that was fun too. So we'll see. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll catch you guys next time.